The story opens in the Duke's dining room, where a servant informs him of his daughter's arrival. Their greeting is unusually blunt and frank, suggesting a strained relationship. The central mystery is who has control over the lady's body. Let's take a step back and explore the novel All the Men That Loved Her. As the title suggests, the story centers around Yuri, a commoner who is adopted by the Baron and becomes the central heroine. Throughout the novel, 4 male protagonists fall deeply in love with her: the Crown Prince, the Sniper, the Werewolf, and the Millionaire Merchant. And what's a good story without a villain? Lady Melissa Fodderbright fills that role perfectly. Not only is she the Crown Prince's fiancé and the older sister of the Sniper, but she also serves as a nemesis to the Werewolf and a troublemaker with a unique and hostile relationship with the Millionaire Merchant. Let's continue with the story. To simplify things, Melissa and her father already have a strained relationship. During a dinner, her father states that Jake, Melissa's younger brother, is the sole heir to the family estate. Melissa disagrees with this decision, as she believes that Jake is not as committed to the family and is rarely at home like she is. She feels that accompanying her father to dinner is a waste of time and decides to leave early. Initially, inhabiting Melissa's body is challenging due to her personality and circumstances. However, it turns out to be tolerable compared to her previous life as a college student with a heavy workload. With her wide forehead, a potential sign of intelligence and wisdom. So, yeah, she can handle the situation and be Melissa. However, she won't be like the wicked villainess in the storybook, and she has no intention of turning into a reformed saint or trying to seduce the male characters and lure them into a harem. In order to simplify her life, she starts by addressing the first disturbing issue, calling off her engagement with the Crown Prince, Ian Basilios. At first, she tries to craft a lovely letter, but soon realizes that a blunt and straightforward approach is more effective. She then asks her maid, Yona, to deliver the letter, but Yona suggests that Melissa call off the engagement in person. It's not that Yona cares about her, rather, she's simply too lazy to do it herself. Melissa wonders if Yona even thinks of her as her lady. No, don't badmouth Yona first. Melissa comes to visit the Crown Prince as she received the royal letter demanding her to come. But what she finds, Ian in a compromising position, half naked with another woman and even using sleazy lines to seduce that woman. You, disgusting. Naturally, this isn't Ian's first time indulging in such behavior, and certainly not his second or third. Every time Melissa catches him in an act of debauchery, she used to yell and attack the other woman, while Ian remained unaccountable. It's high time that he learns his lesson. So she calls him out as a filthy dog. Ian halts his despicable behavior and turns to her, asking if she's insane for using such harsh words. But the way she replies is electrifying. She informs him that she's the one who ought to be using that term since he's committing adultery right in front of his fiancé. Unlike the Melissa in the novel, the Melissa now truly despises the Crown Prince. Ian assumes that she's going to physically assault him, but instead, she makes a biting remark right to his face. Melissa couldn't care less about what Ian has to say. She even goes so far as to insult him by suggesting that she could make him kiss the ground, seeing as his level is no better than that of the floor. Wait, is he trembling? For a man who has the nerve to cheat, is he going to cry after one insult? Seriously? After so long of being a bystander, watching Melissa inflict her fury on others and never being the subject of her anger, Ian is probably bewildered at being a target this time. Well, since Melissa is the villainess, she can play the part sometimes. Melissa then explains that since Ian despises her so much, it's better to end the relationship now. It's not like they're going to play pat a cake in bed once they're married. In the novel, Ian is set to break up with Melissa as soon as he meets Yuri, but Melissa stubbornly refuses to let go, waiting for a tragic outcome and a broken heart. However, the current Melissa won't let that happen. Even though Ian has no feelings for Melissa, he still cheated on her right in front of her, leaving her no reason to stay with him. So Melissa thinks Ian cheated because he was waiting for her to initiate the breakup. While their engagement was somewhat political, Ian hated Melissa. And when he demanded they end it, she wouldn't accept. Nevertheless, Ian is going to meet Yuri soon, and he will genuinely fall in love with her. At this point, Melissa thinks breaking up the engagement now is the best decision. She believes that nothing worse can happen, even if the story progresses faster than the original plotline. As the Duke's daughter, a terminated engagement won't block her path to marriage. In other words, she has no problem with canceling the engagement. Melissa reiterates her desire to cancel the engagement, which surprises Ian. However, Ian unexpectedly refuses to break up with her and even pushes away the girl he was with. Ian asks Melissa why she suddenly brought up the topic of a breakup, but Melissa points out that his actions suggest that he wants to break up. After he said he doesn't want to break up, his face turned red. Well, if it's not because he has an adultery fetish, or not because he's the kind of person that gets turned on by getting caught, then it must be because he enjoys making Melissa miserable. Melissa expresses her belief that Ian had a greater reason for his behavior, although it still caused her anguish. Glaring at the other woman, Melissa laments how seeing her lover cling to other women hurts her as the villainess of Bright. The woman gets up and puts on her clothes, while Ian remains speechless. The awkward silence fills the room as they stand there with nothing but the sound of the woman getting dressed. Following this conversation, Melissa's memories and emotions became vivid. Until then, things had been somewhat unclear. According to Melissa's recollection, Ian had blamed his scandals on Melissa's violent temper. As a result, Melissa had internalized all the criticisms to justify his infidelity. She bore the shame and pain as her own and buried the truth. This reminded Melissa of her past life in Korea, where women were also always blamed for their partner's debauchery. Ian attempts to shift the blame to Melissa, claiming that her behavior of clinging to him and showing up unannounced is what drove him to treat her like that. Melissa sees through Ian's victim playing, and instead of arguing, she explains that her actions were simply expressions of her love for him, like sharing tea or holding each other. However, she emphasizes that this does not justify Ian's despicable behavior. In the past, whenever Ian sent an invitation to Melissa, she would spend the entire day selecting an outfit, feeling excited and doing everything possible to get ready. However, every time she arrived at the palace, the scene was always the same. Despite this, Melissa never declined an invitation because it was evidence that Ian had thought of her, even if it was just for a moment. Melissa asks Ian if he ever considered that she would react that way. Ian responds that it's because Melissa loves him. Hearing this, Melissa is left speechless and only imagines hitting him with an ashtray. To make it clear, Melissa declares that she no longer loves Ian at all. Oh, look at that fool's expression. He looks like someone just told him the Earth's shape is a heart. Ian's stubbornness in refusing to cancel the engagement infuriates Melissa. Despite her growing impatience, Ian continues to try and explain himself. Meanwhile, the woman accompanying them tries to make a run for it, but clumsily trips and falls, knocking over a nearby glass ashtray in the process. The commotion alerts the guard stationed at the front door, who rushes in without asking any questions and immediately accuses Melissa of causing the disturbance. Being the infamous villainess in the palace, the guards likely assume that Melissa is responsible for the woman's fall and the shattered ashtray. As Melissa tries to explain the situation, the woman puts on a show, running to Ian and claiming that she was frightened. What a pair of drama queen! Melissa comes to the realization that she is alone, and that losing her cool would only worsen the situation. She turns to look at Ian and declares firmly that he's cancelled for good. As Melissa rides home, she considers the possibility of eliminating the Crown Prince, not because of any personal vendetta against him, although he may have insulted her. Instead, she recognizes that a man with his lack of intellect ascending to the throne would certainly lead to the destruction of the kingdom. He would cause chaos, only to casually appear before his citizens and say, "Bal, love me." Even if he changes his ways when he meets Yuri based on his current behavior, Yuri would likely reject him. Thus, Melissa believes that eliminating him is the only way to secure a brighter future for all. When they arrive at her house, the coachman informs her, but Melissa remains deep in thought about how to accomplish her goal, causing the coachman to become frightened. After some time, Melissa realizes it's time to exit the carriage. As the coachman tries to advise her against acting recklessly, Melissa assumes he is concerned for her and offers him a reassuring smile. However, her eerie grin only intensifies the coachman's terror. Oh, this misunderstanding. Melissa pays a visit to her father, Duke Fodabright, and requests a moment of his time. Despite Melissa's height, Duke Fodabrat towers over her with an intimidatingly fierce expression that mirrors Melissa's own. Duke Fodabright inquires about the reason for Melissa's unexpected visit. Melissa's father, Duke Fodabright, was a firm believer in patriarchal principles. In her childhood, Melissa never received any love from her father despite being the firstborn. Instead, her younger brother Jake received all the attention and affection. This treatment naturally caused Melissa to harbor resentment towards her father. As a result, the two never managed to build any sort of bond. As Melissa and her father stare at each other, Duke Fodabright abruptly decides to leave the hallway. Melissa assumes her father did not hear her request and asks again. Duke Fodabright stops and turns to ask what she wants to discuss. As Melissa begins to speak, he interrupts, stating that they cannot discuss important matters in the hallway and must move to a sitting room. Saying he'll prepare the room, he quickly disappears, leaving Melissa shocked and wondering if her father is preparing a water to throw to her. Suddenly, he returns to inform her to wait an additional 5 minutes, but then corrects it to be 10 minutes more, causing Melissa to grow more confused and anxious about the meeting. Upon entering the room, Melissa is taken aback by what she sees. The entire room is adorned in shades of pink, and even her father is dressed in a fancy pink suit. However, his facial expression does not match the cheerful decor. Melissa makes an effort to contain her emotions and avoid saying something she may regret later. She proceeds to explain the reason for her visit, but her father keeps interrupting her, offering her cakes and tea, which he claims is quite popular among the younger generation. Melissa notices that her father drinks black coffee instead of the same tea he offered her, which causes her to become paranoid and wonder if the tea might be poisoned. Melissa ponders how to avoid drinking the suspicious tea, while the Duke continues to stare at her intently. However, as soon as the Duke looks away, she takes advantage of the opportunity and spills the drink. The Duke then asks Melissa to tell him what she wants to say, especially since they haven't had a conversation in over 10 years. Melissa is startled to hear this, as she greets the Duke every morning during breakfast. However, the Duke doesn't remember her greetings, indicating that he has been ignoring her all this time. This revelation drains Melissa's patience and makes her want to cut straight to the chase and express her main concern. Just as Melissa is about to speak, the door is suddenly kicked open. It turns out to be her younger brother, Jake Fodabright. Jake is one of Yuri's suitors and also the heir to Duke Fodabright's title and estate. As the sniper in the royal family's official assassin, anyone who has opposed the royal family has met a mysterious death at his hands. Despite his young age, Jake is renowned as the Empire's greatest shooter and is lauded for his impressive magic skills. However, he refuses to show his face in society for unknown reasons. Whenever he appears, he hides behind his black robe and avoids showing his face in public at all costs. He's barely at home and always wandering somewhere else. Despite sharing genes with Jake, Melissa lacks his shooting and magic skills. Moreover, Jake is even more stunningly beautiful than her, making it difficult for anyone to believe that they are related. In the novel, Jake is portrayed as a silent, handsome, and cool guy who keeps a watchful eye on Yuri. However, in reality, Jake is nothing like his novel counterpart. Instead of being a taciturn, he's a constant complainer. Even nagging about the room decorations and cups, it becomes clear that Jake despises his sister and isn't fond of his father either. Melissa is frustrated and disheartened by her brother's true personality. Even the Duke doesn't seem like himself, unlike in the novel. He sits there cluelessly, taking in Jake's complaints like a child. The dissonance between reality and the novel is overwhelming, and Melissa feels like someone is repeatedly hitting her head with a hammer. Despite her frustration, Melissa manages to keep her anger in check and tries to greet Jake. However, Jake's behavior changes drastically upon hearing her greeting, and suddenly becomes silent and ignores her. Melissa then asks Jake if she could have some time alone with the Duke. Melissa hopes Jake will go away, but he catches her attention by saying the name Nya. This name angers her because it reminds her of memories from the novel. Jake and Ian used to be friends, which helped Jake become connected to the royal family. However, the situation becomes more dramatic since they will fight over Yuri. Jake informs Melissa that Ian had complained to him about the cancelled engagement and pleaded with him to speak to his sister about it. Melissa realizes that Jake has returned home to fulfill Ian's request, as the Duke always heeds his son's words. This makes Melissa worried that she can't refuse the Duke's commands. Knowing Jake's manipulative plan, Melissa confronts him and firmly states that he has no right to order her to call off her engagement or involve himself in her relationship with Ian. She accuses him of being Ian's lapdog, blindly following his orders even when it comes to his own sister's personal matters. Upon hearing Melissa's words, Jake becomes upset. She confirms that though they don't like each other, Jake is really crossing the line and not treating her like an older sister. Therefore, she won't treat Jake like a younger sibling either. Her words make Jake realize that his actions were unwise. After her confrontation with Jake, Melissa turns to the Duke and expresses her intention to call off her engagement with the Crown Prince, Ian. She declares that she won't tolerate any interference from him and even hints at the possibility of taking drastic action if he tries to stop her. As the Duke sits there in a daze, Melissa stands up and leaves. Leaving them bewildered, Melissa appears visibly frustrated and questions whether she is living in a nightmare. To confirm her reality, she slaps her own face. But the reality remains that her room has become an absolute hell. The walls, ceiling, and floor are plastered in Prince Ian's portraits, thanks to Jake's mischievous plan. Melissa cannot believe that Jake has so many portraits of the prince, and she is even more enraged that she cannot get them off the walls. For the sake of her mental health, Melissa quickly decides to leave the room. However, before making her way out, one of the portraits catches her eye and triggers a surge of anger so intense that she becomes faint. After regaining her consciousness and successfully escaping from the hellish room, Melissa is determined to find and punish Jake. With a fierce look in her eyes, she searches around the mansion but is unable to locate him. Melissa asks the servant about Jake's whereabouts. The servant informs her that before disappearing, Jake had instructed the servant to tell Melissa, "You don't need to thank me." As Melissa processes the servant's message, she feels a surge of anger towards Jake for underestimating her and assuming that she still has feelings for the Crown Prince. She realizes that he must have left the photos in her room as a ploy to make her fall for the prince again. The absurdity of his thinking causes Melissa to burst into maniacal laughter, which frightens the servant. Meanwhile, Jake is alone in his secret hideaway at the top of the mansion when he hears a noise and the window opening. To his surprise, Melissa has finally found him. Jack is amazed at how Melissa managed to find his secret place, and she lies that it was due to her abilities. However, the truth is that she read about his hideout in the novel. That tells Jack's secret place is located on the roof of the Duke's mansion, close to the chimney. The area is rarely cleaned, and no one ever comes up there. The floor is smooth, and there is a stable wall to lean against, making it a perfect spot for spending time alone. Jack often comes up here to escape his oppressive father and sister. Melissa confronts Jake for turning her peaceful haven into a nightmare. She also explains that she no longer has feelings for Ian and has called off their engagement because Ian had plenty of opportunities to cheat on her. Instead of understanding, Jake laughs and says he doesn't believe her, which infuriates Melissa and leads to another argument. Melissa also advises Jake to be more considerate and think about how his actions affect others. However, Jake seems to be indifferent to this idea, which leaves Melissa at a loss for words. She then warns him not to touch her belongings again, or she will take drastic measures. As Melissa is giving Jake a piece of her mind, a familiar voice interrupts them with a sharp rebuke. It's Martha, the nanny who raised them both and the only one who loved Melissa. But she left the household when they were grown. Melissa wonders what brings her back. Martha urges Jake and Melissa to come down from the roof and scolds them for their reckless behavior. As they apologize, Martha also apologizes for scolding them right after her arrival, admitting that she still sees them as children. She warns Melissa to be more careful, especially now that she is soon to be wed. What a wedding! What is Martha talking about? Melissa wonders about what Martha meant about the wedding news. It turns out Martha heard that Melissa is going to announce her engagement at the upcoming Royal Spring Ball. And that was the reason Martha came rushing back to the Fada Bright household. Melissa becomes even more confused. But Martha seems otherwise, as she knows that Melissa has had a crush on the Crown Prince for a long time. Martha feels a sense of pride knowing that Melissa will soon be associated with a charming prince. She fondly remembers how Melissa used to proclaim as a child, "I will become a princess one day." Martha is overwhelmed with happiness and tears up. However, Melissa remains speechless and suddenly loses consciousness. Observing this, Martha assumes that Melissa has fainted due to being overcome with joy. Melissa remains lying on her bed, unresponsive to Yona's presence. Yona, however, sees through Melissa's act and lets her know that she is aware of her being awake. Melissa hesitantly opens her eyes. Nearly half the day has elapsed since Melissa fainted before Martha, but now all she desires is to remain in bed. As she lies there, she's consumed by remorse as she reflects on the past moment when a teary-eyed Melissa implored Ian to marry her the following spring. If she could go back in time, she would vigorously shake her past self and demand that she possess more self-worth. As a result of Melissa's prior fits of rage and rash decisions, she now finds herself facing the repercussions of her past behavior. What's most exasperating for her is that the prince seemed to have ignored her requests initially, only to abruptly change his mind and decide to reveal their engagement at the forthcoming spring ball. Based on the novel, the prince never planned on inviting Melissa to the ball and instead intended to accompany another girl. However, Melissa's adamant desire to terminate their engagement prompted him to gather all the nobles and commoners and declare their nuptials during the royal ball to thwart the cancellation. The prince never disclosed his intentions to Melissa about the announcement, so he might have gone directly to the duke instead. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Melissa believes she needs to address the issue by speaking with the duke. However, Yona informs her that the duke had departed several days earlier to oversee affairs in the provinces. Yona further discloses that the crown prince has been buying the costliest garments and ornaments from every shop in anticipation of the ball, remarking that my betrothed must be the most stunning at the ball. Mind your expression, girl. Melissa is frustrated by the prince's disregard for her wishes and views his actions as an abuse of power. As a high-ranking noble herself, she is perfectly capable of obtaining her own dress for the ball. Nevertheless, the prince's demeanor has left her simmering with rage and vowing to retaliate against him in the future. As rumors about the wedding announcement have already circulated, it seems too late for Melissa to make amends. After all, she had very publicly expressed her desire to marry the prince. Amidst her confusion, she suddenly has some ideas. Melissa's initial idea is to skip the ball, but as it is hosted by the royal family, the event will be grand and attended by all the aristocrats and distinguished guests. As the crown prince's fiancé and the daughter of Duke Fadabright, Melissa is obliged to attend. Furthermore, given that everyone anticipates the wedding announcement at the ball, her absence would permanently damage the prince's reputation. Melissa considers the idea for a moment and jokingly suggests to Yona that she should break her leg or expose herself to the cold, but Yona immediately dismisses the idea, stating that even if Melissa falls ill, she still has to attend the ball. Melissa's mind races with desperate thoughts, even contemplating the extreme measure of taking her own life. Yona cynically suggests that assassinating the prince might be a better solution, but this frustrates Melissa even more as she knows that no one would dare to attempt a royal assassination. Desperately, Melissa even considers pretending to be insane and then physically attacking Inan in front of everyone to create a scene and cause chaos, all in an effort to escape from the prince's grasp. None of these ideas make sense, and Melissa loses her temper, taking out her frustration on a nearby pillow. Running out of ideas and with limited time left until the ball, Melissa aimlessly wanders around the mansion, causing anxiety among the staff. Eventually, she realizes she has no choice but to attend the ball. So she sets out to buy a new dress, the most outrageous one she can find, with the sole purpose of embarrassing Ian. In the dress shop, Melissa declines all the lavish and elaborate dresses and instead asks for a simple sack with holes for the arms and legs. Are you kidding me? She realizes that the spring ball is an eagerly anticipated event, unlike any other balls or parties, with many people coming from far and wide to find the perfect dress or wear family heirlooms. In short, the Royal Spring Ball is the most prestigious social event of the season, and Melissa intends to create a statement with her intentionally shabby dress. Yona reminds Melissa that her reputation will be ruined, but Melissa thinks it has already hit rock bottom and couldn't possibly get any worse. Just as she's about to give up and accept her fate, a hooded figure suddenly appears and intervenes. As he removes his hood, a radiant light emanates from his face, revealing that it is none other than Jake. Even so, Melissa provokes Jake by telling him that he is so obsessed with his big sister that he even followed her to the dress shop. Jake just smiles in response and shows his one-finger salute. Jake says he came unwillingly, but Melissa irritates him by impersonating Ian and telling Jake to keep a watchful eye on her to prevent any misbehavior. Then she disregards him and tries on some dresses. While admiring herself in the mirror, Melissa declares how pretty she looks, but Jake mocks her. She then asks Yona to tell Jake to leave, but he refuses. Then again, she asks Yona to tell Jake to wear the dress and marry the crown prince instead. Jake falls silent, and Melissa eventually loses interest and leaves the dress shop, much to the relief of the shop owner who hopes they never return. Actually, the weather is perfect for playing outside, but not for looking for a dress for an event she doesn't even want to attend. However, Yona reminds her of the urgency to find a dress as soon as possible. Melissa feels overwhelmed by the task of preparing for the ball event because she lacks confidence in her fashion sense and feels uneasy socializing with high society. Even when she tries to put on a smile, she notices that others often respond with fear or discomfort. While lost in thought about her difficulties, Melissa spots a man lying in a narrow alley. As she draws near, she catches a whiff of an unpleasant odor and feels pity for the unkempt, gaunt-looking man. Yet, as she examines him more closely, Melissa formulates a wicked plan to get even with the crown prince. Melissa is delighted that the man accepts her help, feeling as if she has just accomplished a great feat like catching a rare Pokemon. In Melissa's mind, she envisions the upcoming royal ball where many women will try to win Ian's heart. She is confident that her new friend's exceptional looks will outshine all others, with a radiance so intense that no one can compete with it. Melissa firmly believes that her plan will be flawless. Throughout her life, Melissa had been surrounded by handsome men, such as her fiancé, the crown prince, her brother with his striking features, and even the employees of the Duke's household who possessed a charming appearance. As a result, she had developed a discerning eye for beauty. It was this ability that allowed her to recognize the rough diamond that was the beggar. No amount of dirt could conceal his captivating allure. To carry out her plan, Melissa decides to bring that homeless man to her residence. Initially, Yona refuses Melissa's decision to bring the man back to their residence, instead of finding a dress for the ball. However, Melissa persuades Yona by whispering that she will pay her double. Yona's attitude changes drastically, and she agrees, even calling it a testament to Melissa's duty as a person of high birth. Melissa realizes that Yona is extremely materialistic, perhaps the most she has ever encountered. As they ride home in the carriage, Melissa can't shake the feeling that she has left something behind, but she can't quite remember what it is. Meanwhile, in town, Jake has lost sight of Melissa. Poor Jake, don't cry. With the Duke away in the provinces, sneaking the beggar into the mansion through the back door was easily accomplished. Once inside, Melissa is excited to begin transforming him for the ball, even considering giving him a bath. However, the beggar shakes his head, signaling that he wants to bathe alone. Melissa relents and instructs Yona to accompany him instead. While she waits, Melissa reflects on her plan once again. She thinks about how Ian cheated her, and though there may be no law against her cheating too, she doesn't want to stoop to his level and become just like him. Melissa decides that she will not engage in any meaningless physical encounters with strangers, unlike him. Melissa isn't driven by the desire to make Ian jealous or to cause him to feel a sense of loss. Rather, she's curious to observe the reactions of other guests at the ball. Melissa is aware that her previous affection towards Ian has been the topic of gossip, but now she has a new charming man by her side. She anticipates that the other attendees will be filled with speculation, and Ian will probably become anxious and suspicious. Melissa believes that this condition will satisfy her enough, and she doesn't care if other people get the wrong idea about her. Her standing in high society has already been damaged, and she is not concerned with participating in lavish social events or seeking power. Melissa's only goal is to demonstrate that she is not the type of woman who is interested in someone like Ian Basilios, even if he happens to be the crown prince. Melissa asks her new friend to be her partner at the ball, and she also tells him that he can refuse if he doesn't want to. He looks at her for a moment, then nods silently, leaving Melissa unsure of whether his agreement is sincere or not. The new friend smiles and it makes him look even more handsome. She suggests that he smile like that during the ball, but he suddenly becomes stiff with shyness. In an attempt to know her new friend better, Melissa asks for his name and origin, but he remains silent and gestures that he doesn't have a tongue. Melissa feels bad about her behavior, realizing that she may have been insensitive. Suddenly, Yona appears with a pen and paper. "Good job, Yona." The man writes down his name as 9. He also conveys his appreciation to Melissa for her kindness and for giving him this opportunity. Melissa's guilt deepens as she realizes that she may have used 9's honesty to deceive others. The day of the royal ball. Yona informs Melissa that the prince has arrived to escort her to the ball. She can't help but feel uncomfortable receiving his hospitality after the engagement has been called off, rather than before Melissa is ready to put her plan into action. Her ball partner 9 arrives at her call looking radiant. However, she's also aware that her plan is daring and carries the risk of offending the royal family, which could lead to legal consequences. Though she's scared, the thrill of the moment compels her to proceed with her reckless act. Melissa convinces 9 to trust her, but he blushes bashfully in response. "Melissa, stop teasing innocent guy." The prince's carriage is already waiting, but Melissa feels conflicted as she finds herself still attracted to Ian's good looks. However, she believes that 9 is even more elegant and handsome. Indeed. Upon seeing Melissa with another man, Ian becomes curious and asks about his identity. Melissa introduces 9 as her partner, explaining that since the prince had not invited her, she had brought her own escort. Melissa recalls that the prince had ignored her and danced with another woman at the last ball, and suggests that Ian find a partner among his other admirers, such as the woman from before, who would surely accept his invitation. As Melissa readies to depart for the ball, Ian offers her a ride in his carriage. But Melissa is put off by the ostentatious display of the royal emblem on the carriage and politely declines his offer. She also explains that riding with Ian and 9 in the same carriage would be awkward and uncomfortable. Ian is taken aback by her refusal and watches silently as she walks away. Melissa takes pleasure in Ian's reaction, but she realizes too late that her expression reveals more than she intended. The coachman catches sight of her face, again, creating an uncomfortable situation for both of them. As Melissa sits in the carriage on the way to the ball, she can't help but think about her plan to make Ian suffer. Her thoughts amuse her, causing her to let out a wicked chuckle. However, her behavior makes 9 uneasy, wondering if she's all right. In the royal ball. As expected, many attendees try to peek and eavesdrop on Melissa, 9, and Ian. They're curious about why Melissa is with another man and completely ignoring the crown prince. The nobles who are aware of Melissa and Ian's situation begin to encircle them, eagerly anticipating what drama may unfold. In an effort to dispel the awkwardness, Ian takes the initiative to commence the first dance. Despite his intentions, the attendees remain curious and continue to sneak glances at them. To everyone's surprise, Ian then asks Melissa to dance. However, with a play hard to get expression, Melissa declines, claiming that she cannot dance. Melissa makes an excuse, saying her partner wouldn't approve of her dancing with another man, and her father had forbidden it as well. Ian becomes impatient and tells her that making excuses won't do her any good. Melissa continues to avoid dancing with Ian, making more unreasonable excuses. As a servant passes by with canapes, Melissa takes one and intentionally drops it, claiming her fingers slipped. Ian looks confused by Melissa's behavior, but she steps on the fallen canap, saying her feet are prone to slipping, which is why she can't dance. Ian grows even angrier, but then a woman appears behind him and asks him to dance. Ian quickly grabs her hand, agrees to dance, and leaves Melissa behind. Melissa feels relieved, thinking that Ian shouldn't have bothered trying to fight it since he was just going to give up so easily. Holding onto Nine's arm, she leads them to another spot. After giving Nine a glass of champagne, she praises his good work, thinking of how she'll reward him handsomely. Nine blushes and puts on a magnificent smile, causing Melissa to be unable to look away from him. As they raise their glasses to cheers, Melissa notices Nine's expression suddenly turn pale, leaving her bewildered. She asks him what happened, but Nine only apologizes to her before quickly giving her his glass and running away. Melissa is left wondering what went wrong. She considers whether she did something to upset him or if Ian gave him a death stare, but she sees that Ian is busy dancing with another woman. Melissa is left confused and keeps wondering what happened to Nine, as he looked frightened before he left. At first, Melissa assumes that Nine may have needed to use the restroom, but she wonders why he didn't tell her. Then she starts to think that something urgent might have come up that he couldn't mention. Despite waiting for 2 hours, Nine doesn't return. The stares from other people make Melissa feel uneasy, and she starts to wonder if Nine got lost in the palace or left her intentionally. To avoid becoming a laughingstock, Melissa decides to search for Nine on her own, since the ball has ended. While searching for Nine, Melissa begins to think that it might be Ian's fault for his disappearance. Observing Nine's expression, Melissa accuses Ian of scolding Nine while she wasn't paying attention. Unable to locate Nine, Melissa takes a seat, realizing she can't call out his name and search for him due to fear of being ridiculed by others. As a result, Melissa becomes anxious, anticipating being labeled as a villainess first abandoned by her fiancé and then her lover. Left with no other option, Melissa decides to search in the men's restroom. However, just as she's about to leave, she catches a glimpse of someone near the bushes. Assuming she has finally found Nine, she calls out to him. But to her surprise, a girl emerges from the bushes, looking equally bewildered as Melissa. Melissa is lost in thought and accidentally says the girl's name aloud. The girl standing before her is none other than Yuri, the novel's heroine, whose beauty could make anyone fall in love with her at first sight. It's no surprise that all the male protagonists are smitten by her. Yuri is surprised to hear that Melissa knows her and wonders if they have met before. Still in shock, Melissa explains that this is their first encounter. Yuri smiles and mentions Melissa must hear the rumors about her adoption into the Elizabeth household. Although it is not entirely unusual for a commoner to be adopted by an aristocrat, it is noteworthy to be adopted into the prestigious Elizabeth household. Melissa feels uneasy responding to Yuri, but she tells her that she is even more beautiful than the rumors suggest. Hearing Melissa's compliment, Yuri thanks her. Being accepted into the Baron's household implies that her magical abilities are exceptional, as the Elizabeth household is populated with prodigious magic wielders. However, since Yuri is a commoner, there is much gossip surrounding her adoption. Melissa regains her composure and remembers that her mission is to find Nine. She politely asks for permission to leave and suddenly hears Ian calling out her name from behind the bushes. As Ian emerges from the foliage, Melissa is shocked and assumes that he has come to announce their wedding. However, to her surprise, Ian is flustered and blushing as he has just fallen in love with someone else. Melissa remembers that this is where Ian and Yuri are meant to meet for the first time, and one of the most pivotal scenes of the novel is unfolding before her eyes. Later in her room, Melissa feels exhausted and vents her frustrations to her maid Yona. But all she receives in response is a "Yes, my lady." The one thing that brings her some relief is that the wedding announcement was cancelled, though not because her plan succeeded. In fact, her plan has been ruined, and she feels as though all her efforts have been in vain. Suddenly, Melissa remembers Nine leaving her at the ball and feels disappointed. She declares that she will never trust men again, and Yona laughs at this statement. However, when Melissa glares at her, Yona pretends to be innocent. Meanwhile, in the forest, 9 is on the run. It appears that he fled the ball early to ensure that Melissa did not get caught up in the situation. Abruptly, someone stops him, a red-haired werewolf who launches an attack on 9. Melissa is lost in thought and doesn't hear Martha calling her. Martha smacks her to wake her up and asks her what's making her so absent-minded. Martha assumes it's because Ian didn't announce the wedding at the ball and reassures Melissa that Ian will soon set a date. Melissa feels helpless. Melissa realizes once again that she's in the world of the novel and that most events will follow the story's plot. The only thing she has control over is her own future. In other words, no matter how much she tries to sabotage Ian, he will still find a flower-lined path unfolding before him with the girl he loves. This fact drains her motivation, prompting her to conserve her energy as disengaging the engagement will be a time-consuming process. After spending a whole day in bed, Martha asks Melissa to go outside and get some fresh air in the garden. Martha says she has also prepared lunch for Melissa. Melissa is shocked and tells Martha she isn't hungry, but Martha insists. Melissa gestures to Yona for help, but Yona responds with a "you're dead" gesture. Despite being an incredible nanny, Martha is a terrible cook. While Martha serves the food, Melissa prays to God to keep her stomach safe. Observing Martha's efforts to organize the picnic, Melissa decides to compromise her taste preferences if it brings joy to Martha. However, Melissa admits to herself that she is not entirely mentally prepared for this. But just as Melissa is about to eat, she hears something approaching. Melissa instinctively protects Martha, causing the food to be ruined in the process. To Melissa's relief, this mishap spares her from having to eat the food. The unexpected intruder turns out to be Jack Photon, a red-haired werewolf who is one of Yuri's suitors. Melissa confronts him sternly, reminding him that he was not invited. Jack retorts that Melissa used to bring home uninvited men, which infuriates her. As Melissa utters Jack's name, she commands him to leave the premises immediately. Jack is taken aback when he realizes that Melissa recognizes him and tells her to stop behaving foolishly. He then threatens Melissa, indicating that he cannot be stopped. Melissa struggles with how to respond, considering the safety of those around her. Unexpectedly, Jack offers to spare her people if she listens to him. Melissa is taken aback by his unexpected shift in tone, at least for the time being. Before she can respond, a silent white magic nearly hits Jack, causing them both to startle. Melissa realizes it is her brother, Jake, who is holding a gun and warns that a dog has entered the premises. Furious, Jack complains that he could have been killed. However, Melissa understands that Jake didn't act out of concern for their safety or to apprehend the intruder. She knows that Jake is allergic to dog fur and a werewolf is, after all, a canine. Jack is shouting at Jake to come down and fight him fairly, and thus pandemonium begins. The Fodderbright mansion is caught in the crossfire of this dogfight, with the gardeners, servants, and even Martha affected by the chaos. Melissa sees Martha falling down and becomes angry. She shouts at them to stop and brings them to silence, continuing to complain about the chaos they've caused. Melissa calls them an intruder and someone who chose to play along instead of protecting the household. They are taken aback by Melissa's sudden outburst of anger and are unable to respond. Melissa asserts her authority, reminding them that she is in charge while her father is absent, and orders them to remain silent and listen. Melissa advises Jack Photon to express himself politely in a more formal setting if he has something to say, stating that she is not currently in the mood to listen. However, just as Jack attempts to explain himself, Melissa's frustration intensifies, and she warns him to remain silent or else she will use his hair to make a rug. Melissa then demands that her brother come down from his hiding spot, and despite his reluctance, he ultimately complies due to the intensity of her glare. Melissa proceeds to lecture them about the chaos they have caused, urging them to recognize their immense power and to use it wisely. She emphasizes that their abilities are wasted if they are used to torment the weak. The mansion's occupants are moved by Melissa's speech, while Jack and Jake feel remorseful. Finally, Melissa commands them to repair the damage immediately, and this terrifies them. As Melissa puts an ice pack on her head, a maid comes in and asks about her condition. To her surprise, it's not just one maid, but all the other servants also come to check on her. Melissa is shocked and flattered, thinking that being an employee of the Fodderbright house is difficult. Their jobs require not only physical labor but also emotional labor, as they have to take care of the 3 Fodderbright with messed up personalities. Melissa responds by saying that she's the one who should always be thankful to them. The servants are touched even more, and this makes her feel guilty. As Melissa contemplates the possibility of Jack disrupting the mansion again and causing harm to the people, she decides to take action. With the servants away, she orders Yona to contact the Duke and request an introduction to the most skilled swordsmanship teacher in the kingdom. She hopes that by learning the art of the sword, she can better protect herself and those around her in case of future threat. The rain is coming down hard, and Melissa's dog, Leaf, is going crazy with his barking. She's puzzled as to why Leaf keeps barking even though she just took him for a walk in the pouring rain. But then, to Melissa's surprise, he leads her to a wounded blue-furred wolf that's stranded. Now, the scene shifts to Melissa practicing her sword fighting skills. Her instructor is impressed, even though she's only been learning for a month. She's already become quite skilled at it. Melissa never saw this coming because she's not magical, and she's not particularly good-looking, intuitive, intelligent, or talented at dancing. Who would have guessed she had a natural talent for swordsmanship? The servant interrupts while Melissa is taking a rest after her training, handing her a letter from the Photon household. She notices the letter is sealed with a dark red hair, which means it's an official correspondence from the only red-haired member of the Photons. It's mind-blowing because she knows Jack and his terrible temper must have endured the entire time it took for his letter to arrive. As she reads the letter, Melissa recalls from the novel that Jack is supposed to show up on their property by the end of summer. In the letter, it simply says, "Where is 9? The blue-furred wolf is getting treated and is currently knocked out in Melissa's room." Melissa enters the room to check on it, and Yona lets her know that it will still be some time before the wolf wakes up. Melissa approaches the wolf, having a strong feeling that it's 9, but she can't be certain because the wolf is still unconscious. As she gently pets the wolf's head, she decides it's best to prioritize its treatment for now. 1 month later, at the start of summer, Melissa asks her father, Duke Fodderbright, for a moment of his time because she has something important to discuss. Just as her father is about to summon a servant to prepare tea, Melissa interrupts and insists that her father simply listen to her request. Her father inquires about her desires, and Melissa boldly asks for a summer vacation. She proposes keeping only a minimal number of staff at the estate and granting the rest a break. This request completely shocks her father, but Melissa isn't done yet. She follows up with a second request, to increase Yona's pay to the level she desires. When her father hears this, his jaw practically hits the floor. In the end, the Duke fulfills Melissa's requests. Melissa believes that the staff benefits at the estate have been lousy thus far, so it's only fair to give them some breathing room now. Besides, having fewer people around when Jack arrives will lead to fewer problems. She recalls a past incident and is determined not to let it happen again, especially since Jack is supposed to return today. Melissa remembers how difficult it was to convince Yona to take a vacation, as Yona preferred a bonus instead. Melissa knows Yona well and can't risk her causing trouble around Jack. Despite Yona's flaws, Melissa can't afford to lose such a rare and talented individual. Melissa checks in with the maid to ensure that everything is set. The maid, Haney, eagerly responds, assuring Melissa that everything is prepared exactly as she requested. Haney is a lively and kind girl who took over Yona's responsibilities. Melissa instructs Haney to notify the guards immediately if a red-haired man shows up at the front gate. However, Melissa suddenly stops and grasps her sword, signaling Haney to step back. She positions herself for an attack, knowing deep down that Jack will try the same trick to sneak in as he did last time. With swift expertise, Melissa unsheathes her sword and strikes Jack without hesitation. Now, Melissa is more than ready for whatever comes her way. Jack tumbles to the ground, reeling from the sudden attack. Melissa taunts him, mocking his audacity to bypass the gates and comes soaring through the air once again. Still seated on the ground, Jack questions Melissa if she used magic or cheated somehow to throw him off earlier. Pointing her sword at Jack, she silences his babbling, firmly stating that it was her skill alone. However, the sword in her hand, despite its simple appearance, is actually one of Basilio's secret treasures. It's a forgotten secret of secrets, unknown to commoners and even the royal family, as the last king misplaced it. It's an unlucky sword whose existence had been completely forgotten. In the original novel, Ian was supposed to discover the sword and become the greatest knight in the Empire. But Melissa, well, let's just say she borrowed it and brought it here. With a mischievous grin, she thinks to herself, finders keepers, right? In simpler terms, that sword is an awesome, overpowered item enchanted with magic and divine protections. Of course, its effectiveness still depends on the skill of its wielder. Jack still can't believe what Melissa is saying. He recalls how clumsy Melissa was last time and suspects that Jake must be behind all this again. Melissa smacks Jack to shut him up as he continues to blabber. She then asks him why he barged in here. Jack calms down and informs her that he already explained it in the letter. Melissa responds by saying she doesn't know what he means. Suddenly, Jack moves closer and reveals a scar on his face, explaining that scars caused by another werewolf leave a distinct mark. He tells Melissa that the scar was a gift from Nine on the night of the ball. Melissa looks down, confirming that Nine was indeed a werewolf. Jack then emphasizes the word was, stating that someone who betrays their kind and runs away, with their tongue and fangs extracted, can no longer be called a werewolf. He mentions that he should have wrung Nine's neck first. The situation becomes more complicated because Nine had to go and run away, and Jack didn't anticipate that Melissa would bump into Nine. Assuming that Melissa and Nine have become quite close in the meantime, considering Melissa took Nine to the ball, Jack accuses Melissa of hiding Nine. He explains that if Melissa hands Nine over to him without any trouble, he won't bother her anymore. Melissa's face turns serious, as if she wants to say something to Jack. However, Jack seems unable to hear her clearly, so he asks her what she's about to say. Without warning, Melissa swiftly kicks Jack's shin, causing him to yelp in pain. She then puts on a mischievous grin and tells him to shut up. Melissa calls Haney over and asks her to step away for a moment, explaining that she needs to teach Jack a lesson. Melissa proceeds to give him a lesson about not being rude. She tells Jack to give up, but he refuses to back down. He continues to try and attack Melissa, but only ends up with wounds scattered here and there. Eventually, he is defeated by Melissa. Gasping for breath, Jack demands that Melissa hand over Nine to him. Melissa asks him what evidence he has to believe that she is hiding Nine. Unable to contain himself any longer, Jack explains that he searched every corner of the city but couldn't find a single trace of Nine. He only learned about Melissa's involvement because one of his subordinates happened to attend the spring ball. Upon hearing this explanation, Melissa finally understands why Nine disappeared suddenly during the spring ball, and she feels compelled to forgive him. Jack continues his explanation, revealing that he intended to kill Nine back then, but Nine attacked his eye and managed to escape. Knowing that Nine is unfamiliar with the capital, it was clear that Nine would eventually find his way back to Melissa's house. And just like that, the war that had occurred earlier happened. Melissa lets out a big sigh in response to Jack's explanation. She asks him if Nine wasn't here, he would be wasting his time entirely. Just then, someone approaches them. Melissa puts on a smile and tells Jack that she'll give him some credit this time. Suddenly, Jack's expression turns to confusion and shock. It turns out that Nine is fully healed now. Melissa tells Jack that he's only got it halfway right. Jack gets up, boiling with anger, and Melissa boldly says that Nine is hers. She makes it clear that she won't just hand over something that rightfully belongs to her without a fight. Let's go back to the conversation between Melissa and the Duke. Her last request was to hire a commoner as her personal steward, which obviously shocked the Duke even more. In this society, the employees of noble houses are basically treated as the property of the nobles. If someone harms the employees, it's like attacking the entire estate. In the end, Jack was kicked out without even laying a finger on Nine, who had become a member of the Faudabright household. Melissa remembers the moment she discovered that the wolf was 9. She was just as surprised as Jack when he saw 9 here too. 9 recalls how Melissa comforted him when he suddenly burst into tears back then. He also remembers the moment when Melissa assured the Duke that she would take responsibility if anything happened, which eventually convinced her father. 9 felt flattered by Melissa's actions. Interrupted by Melissa calling his name, 9's thoughts are brought back to the present. Melissa mentions that she went through a lot of trouble because of him, and even treated his wounds herself. Seeing 9 feeling guilty, Melissa reassures him that she was joking. However, she tells him to work hard in return for the free treatment and food. As they enter Melissa's room, she instructs 9 to lock the door. Throughout the day, Melissa has been feeling something wrong inside her. Suddenly, blood starts dripping to the floor. Melissa finds herself vomiting blood, and seeing her in that state, 9's expression turns to shock as he desperately tries to hold on to Melissa, who is starting to lose consciousness. Melissa finds herself in an unfamiliar place, wondering who she is and what's going on. Right in front of her, she sees a little girl crying. Melissa asks the girl why she's crying, and the girl explains that nobody wants to hug her. Wanting to help, Melissa offers to give her a hug, but the little girl refuses. Trying to stay calm, Melissa asks what she can do to make the girl stop crying. Out of nowhere, the little girl shouts for Ian to come back. It turns out that the little girl is a younger version of Melissa herself. She reveals that no matter what others say, she likes Ian, and she also wants to get along with her little brother. Big Melissa listens patiently to the burden of the little Melissa, who longs to be loved, and also confirms that this is who little Melissa truly is. Then she tells Big Melissa that she is different from the original Melissa, although they are both Melissa Fadabright. Suddenly, the surroundings start to scatter, and they hear someone calling out to them. Big Melissa can't remember anything, but little Melissa tells her that those voices are calling out to her. Since she is someone who doesn't seek meaningless and empty love from others, someone who won't tolerate unfair treatment, and someone who can forge her own path without relying on anyone else. The future is entirely hers. They share a fist bump and suddenly Melissa opens her eyes. The maids and 9 are there, crying and calling out to her. All the servants are relieved to see Melissa finally awake, but Melissa feels annoyed by all the noise. Noticing that 9 is still crying, Melissa remembers the moment she was talking with the little Melissa. Honestly, she doesn't fully understand how much she has changed by becoming Melissa. She assures 9 that she's not dead and promises to always protect him. She realizes that having 9 by her side is only possible because she is her. However, Melissa reminds 9 that she specifically told him to lock the door before she fainted to prevent situations like this, where the staff comes in and creates such a fuss. This little rascal needs training? In the dining room, the Duke asks what the heck happened to Melissa that made her faint. Deep down, Melissa wants to unleash her anger because her father didn't give a damn about what's been happening in the estate. But she struggles to keep calm and tells him that she's just been a little exhausted lately. She then asks the Duke if she can take a break from the estate for a little while to get some rest. Truth be told, Melissa got herself injured while trying to handle Jack. That fancy sword she had didn't do much for her defense. If it were a regular wound, a good meal and some rest would do the trick, but this was no ordinary wound. The clash between the powers of a werewolf and a human caused a nasty reaction in her body whenever she was attacked. That's why she's been dealing with some internal injuries lately. Duke Fadabright gives her permission to leave, and he even suggests a place for her. But Melissa quickly rejects his suggestion because she already has a place in mind. This leaves the Duke speechless, so he asks her where she has in mind. Melissa reveals a place called Livton. The Duke is shocked, picturing it as some desolate wasteland. But with a big grin on her face, Melissa explains to her father that she actually loves wastelands. She wants to recover while enjoying the view of the barren land. This explanation leaves the Duke unsure of what to say. Melissa then adds that she knows Livton is part of the barony of Elizabeth, and she's well aware she won't be treated as a guest there. But that's okay because as long as the Duke gives his permission, she'll handle the rest on her own. Melissa is feeling confident. knowing the entire story that the beloved heroine's magic will surely cure her illness and restore Nine's missing tongue. On the day of departure, the usual gang gathers. Most of the staff offers to come along, but Melissa tells everyone except Nine and Yona to back off. Yona takes a seat on the coachman's bench and mentions that it will take at least 2 days to reach Livton, no matter how fast they go. Melissa is surprised to learn that Yona can drive a carriage too. However, Melissa complains that 2 days is too long and insists on making it in 1 day. Yona refuses at first, but then Melissa tempts her with a bag of gold coins if they can reach Livton in 1 day. As expected, Yona's mood instantly changes, and she promises to give her heart and soul to make it there in just 6 hours. Melissa realizes that Yona has become obsessed with material desires and has been lying since returning from vacation. And off they go, the carriage moving forward. Suddenly, Yona's voice breaks through Melissa's drowsiness, calling out to her. Melissa tries to shake off her sleepiness and gather her senses. Yona's usually emotionless voice now has an unusual calmness to it, indicating that something isn't right. Melissa slaps herself to stay awake, realizing they're not in a normal situation. It's a bandit ambush demanding their belongings. Melissa calmly soothes Nine as he starts growling. Assessing the bandits, Melissa and Nine confidently step out of the carriage. Melissa reassures Nine, telling him she'll protect him and he doesn't need to do anything. Despite being a werewolf, Nine has lost his canines, which are a werewolf's main source of power. Melissa's words touch Nine, but they enrage the bandit. Preparing herself, Melissa gets ready to draw her sword. The bandit then taunts Melissa, saying he'll be patient because he's in a good mood today, as they've caught a beautiful woman. Melissa stops and wonders who the bandit is referring to. To her surprise, he points to Yuri, revealing that they plan to make a fortune by selling her. Melissa is shocked and asks why Yuri is there and being kidnapped. But all Yuri responds with is an awkward chuckle. Melissa just can't wrap her head around how Yuri ended up being held captive. But as her health takes a nosedive, she starts coughing up blood. Now, with the story taking a different turn, the male protagonist's still not at his best. But with blood staining her lips, Melissa's determined to save Yuri. Looking pretty scary herself, she gears up to take on the bandits and strike fear into their hearts. In no time, all the bandits are down on the ground, and Melissa's feeling pretty satisfied after her rampage. She tells the bandit boss to get his crew and scram. Surprisingly, Melissa opts not to off them, but instead aims to give them a lesson, injuring their limbs to put a pause on their crime spree. Then she turns to Yuri, flashing her best smile as she introduces herself. But Yuri's worried sick about Melissa, who's been puking up blood. Melissa tries to reassure her, but it feels like a wild, magical showdown is happening inside her body, making all her organs do the twist. Suddenly, she gets dizzy and keels over, losing consciousness bit by bit. When she comes to, she's in a room with Yuri patiently waiting. Turns out, they're in Baron Elizabeth's mansion in Livton. Shockingly, Melissa's been out cold for 4 whole days. Her pals, especially Nine, are freaking out. Melissa thanks Yuri for looking after her, but Yuri's even more grateful since Melissa saved her skin, earning heaps of gratitude from Baron Elizabeth. Hearing this, Melissa's thankful, knowing that the House of Baron Elizabeth, like the closed-off werewolf clan, is super secretive. She had planned to wait outside for Yuri, but now she's halfway into the estate, her plan sort of working out. She quickly lets Yuri know about her strange sickness, with hopes that only Yuri can cure her. Yuri's not sure if her magic can tackle werewolf energy, so she heads to the library to dig up some answers, facing this dilemma for the first time. Meanwhile, Melissa's back in her room, thinking that if Yuri fixes her up, she'll ask for help fixing Nine's tongue and fangs. Suddenly, a creature sneaks in. Melissa spots it but freaks out a bit because her sword's nowhere to be found. The creature springs at her, only to reveal itself as Nine in his wolf form. Melissa gives Nine a heads up about the serious danger of having a wolf discovered in the sorcerer's place. But Nine keeps shedding tears of joy when he sees Melissa awake, so she gives him a hug to calm him down. Out of the blue, Yuri barges in, catching Melissa off guard. She instinctively shoves 9 away. Melissa tries to pass off the wolf as her pet, but Yuri accuses him of being the werewolf who bit Melissa before. This accusation sets 9 off, sparking a tense showdown that tests Melissa's patience, making her feel like banging her head against a wall. Generally, sorcerers have 2 views on werewolves. Some hate them and want to get rid of them, while others see them as research subjects. Having a werewolf in a barren sorcerer's place is like asking for trouble. Meanwhile, 9's also worked up after being kept away from Melissa for 4 days. When Yuri notices that 9 doesn't have fangs, she's convinced he's not the werewolf who hurt Melissa. But she still feels guilty about the prince declaring his love for her and Melissa saving her life, so she vows to protect Melissa. In the end, Melissa steps in and tells 9 to leave so she can chat with Yuri. Sadly, 9 obeys, and Yuri thinks she's won. Yuri agrees to let 9 stay for Melissa's sake, and explains that healing her means injecting energy into her body to flush out the werewolf energy. But with Melissa's magic energy super low, it's gonna take a lot. Still, Yuri promises to heal her. The energy injection turns out to be agony, like stubbing your toe, stepping on Legos, cutting your fingers, and face-planting on your phone all at once. Finally, the healing works and Melissa feels better. She's grateful, but Yuri insists it's nothing compared to Melissa saving her life. Melissa asks about how Yuri got captured by bandits, but Yuri dodges the question, revealing she was hiding from the prince when the bandits nabbed her. Suddenly, a serenade interrupts, and Yuri's annoyance turns to a smile when she sees Melissa watching. But as the serenade keeps going, Yuri gets annoyed again and decides to go outside. Out there, a dashing young man welcomes Yuri with his orchestra. Melissa recognizes him as a rich dude with a dark side who planned to snatch and lock up Yuri. This nutcase is called Peacock Melody. In the novel that sucked Melissa into its pages, the guys who are into Yuri are the 4 main dudes. Just like your standard reverse harem fantasy romance, each guy's got their own thing going on. First up, there's Ian, the crown prince, who's also a sweet, stylish swordsman. Then there's Jake, quiet and cool, but a sharpshooter who's easy on the eyes. Next is Jack, the wolf tribe dude, with his rugged good looks and wild streak. And finally, there's Peacock Melody, the big shot with stacks of cash from the Peacock company. Right now, Peacock's rolling up with a bunch of super rare jewel roses as a gift for Yuri. She tries to say no thanks, but Peacock won't take no for an answer. His servants jump in too, pushing Yuri to take the gift, which just ticks her off more. Yuri's on the verge of giving Peacock a piece of her mind, but Melissa covers her mouth, worried he might flip out and cause trouble for everyone. Peacock notices Melissa and asks who she is. Melissa busts out a superhero-style intro, cracking Yuri up and leaving Peacock totally surprised by her antics. Melissa already knows these guys chasing after Yuri aren't exactly top-notch. One's a cheat, another's got no manners. There's a total dunce, and the last one's just all about his money, toxic vibes and all. But despite their flaws, they sure clean up nice. Considering all this and Melissa's debt to Yuri, she decides to step in and protect her. With some guts, Melissa kicks Peacock to the curb and tells him to quit bugging Yuri, even offering to throw down if he's got a problem. Then she whisks Yuri away, leaving Peacock totally baffled and unable to believe what just went down. Back in the room, Yuri's cracking up at Melissa's antics and loving Peacock's shocked face. But soon enough, Melissa's scratching her head when she sees 9 looking totally shocked and bursting into tears when she asks what's up. It turns out 9 got the wrong idea. He thought Melissa meant she was now Yuri's partner. So he bolts off crying, leaving Melissa scratching her head. Since then, 9's been acting all strange. He's always staring at Melissa with hopeful eyes or looking away with a sad face. Whenever Melissa talks, 9 sighs and clutches his chest. And when Melissa and Yuri chat, 9 watches with watery eyes before shuffling off with a heavy heart. Melissa's like, maybe 9's just going through some awkward growing pains. But now she's got another problem to tackle. Peacock and his crew are on thin ice with the House of Elizabeth, a bunch of powerful sorcerers. These sorcerers don't like outsiders, especially ones stirring up trouble for Yuri, like Peacock's doing. Peacock's even set up camp right outside the house of Elizabeth's turf, really ticking off the sorcerers. But they can't kick him out because Peacock runs the biggest trading business in the whole kingdom. If they boot him, they lose access to food and stuff, putting them in a tight spot. Letting things slide would totally play into Peacock's hands. And now, to add to the mess, the villains entered the scene. Melissa Fodabrat. Today, Peacock Melody shows up to challenge Melissa to a duel. Confident she can take him down, Melissa whips out her sword, ready to go. She's even willing to risk her neck if she loses. But Peacock shuts down that barbaric idea real quick. Instead, he suggests a different kind of duel. A quiz where they each gotta buy what they think is the most valuable and precious thing in the world. Whoever guesses right first wins. Peacock's laid down the rules for the game. First, Yuri's gonna be the ref, making sure she knows both players' answers. Second, no magic tricks or fancy gadgets allowed. Third, if your answer ain't something truly valuable and precious, you're out. Fourth, Peacock kicks off the questions, then they go back and forth for 20 rounds. Fifth, first one to get it right wins. But if the losers got something pricier, they can try to make a deal. Melissa clocks that Peacock's playing dirty, setting up rules that tip the scales in his favor and packing the most expensive item in the kingdom. But she's not backing down. If she can still win, even with Peacock's tricks, it'll hit him where it hurts. Plus, Melissa's pretty sure Peacock won't guess her answer, eyeballing her trusty magic sword, shining like crazy because she's been polishing it non-stop. With the duel set for 3 days, Melissa figures she'll kill time by pretending to be all cultured, diving into Yuri's novels. But that plan goes out the window because the books are all about magic lessons. Just when Melissa's wondering how to beat boredom, there's a knock at the door, and in strolls 9 with tea. Seizing the chance, Melissa gets him to sit and chat, especially since 9's been avoiding her lately. She even jokes about not poisoning the tea, and 9 writes back on a note, "Even if my lady gave me poison, I'd drink it with a smile." Melissa tells him never to actually do that, even if she did give him poison. As 9 starts to write again, Melissa notices his expression and reaches out to touch his hair without thinking. That gets 9 all flustered because he's got a thing for Melissa. He freezes up, trying to hide his feelings, making Melissa feel awkward and apologize for touching him. Then she goes ahead and tells him it's cool if he wants to touch her too, making things even more weird. Meanwhile, Peacock's getting annoyed because Melissa's messing with his plans, making him play nice like a prince. But then a carrier pigeon swoops in with a letter, and Peacock's grin says it all. He's got insider info that Melissa's answer is her trusty sword, worth a cool 50 grand if the sorcerers were to put a price on it. Yona Whitefall, Melissa's right-hand gal, comes from a noble family that's seen better days. To get her family back on top, she needs some serious cash. 3 days back, Peacock got a letter from Yona, offering up info on Melissa's answer for a fat stack of cash. After checking Yona out and seeing she's all about the Benjamins, Peacock figured she was legit and took the deal. Now, armed with Melissa's answer, Peacock's feeling pretty smug. Competition day rolls around. Melissa's pumped, and even though Yuri's been neck-deep in magic training lately, she's stoked to be the judge for the first time. They meet in the courtyard for the showdown. Yuri busts out some magic to summon 2 big boxes with their answers inside, keeping things fair. Peacock kicks things off with a bang, asking if Melissa's answer's worth over 50 grand. Melissa's a bit taken aback by how spot on the question is. She fires back, asking if Peacock's got a jewel, and it's a hit. But when Peacock asks if hers is still pretty even if it's old, Melissa starts sweating, 'cause yeah, it is. Still, she's confident he can't possibly know the answer. But when Melissa asks if Peacock's jewel's pink, it's a swing and a miss. And she was ready to snatch it if it was. Then on Peacock's third go, he takes a wild guess that Melissa's answer is her trusty sword. Melissa's floored, lost for words. Peacock's laughing, thinking he's got it in the bag, but his grin turns to confusion when Melissa just smiles sweetly and denies it. Inside, Melissa's shocked at how easily Peacock fell for the bait. Peacock's fuming, but Yuri sets him straight, saying he's way off base. A few days earlier, Melissa and the gang hatched a plan. Bored out of her mind, Melissa thought it'd be funny to trick Peacock by having Yona pretend to sell her out. The plan was to make it clear it was a setup, but Melissa figured it was worth a shot whether it worked or not. Yona suggested asking for a fat payday to make the con seem legit, just like she'd do if she was really gonna turncoat. Melissa asked if Yona planned to double-cross her for real, and Yona swore she wouldn't. Melissa felt pretty touched and proud hearing Yona's answer, 'cause turns out Yona's loyal. But then Yona spilled the beans, saying it's mainly 'cause no one's offered her more dough than Melissa did. The note offering info to Peacock got sent off by pigeon. Melissa was skeptical at first, but she was blown away when Peacock actually took the bait and sent half the cash up front. Turns out Melissa herself wrote the note with her answer. Back to the here and now, Peacock seething with rage after realizing he got played. But Melissa plays dumb, acting like their quiz was supposed to be fair and square. No funny business. Peacock's ready to tear Melissa a new one after being embarrassed. His goons are itching to draw swords. But Melissa's not backing down, daring Peacock to throw down if he can't handle the outcome. Facing off against a big shot like a dragon, Peacock's totally outmatched. But Yuri steps in to put a stop to their bickering and pushes them to keep going with the quiz. Now with Melissa on the question asking duty. Melissa fires off. Is that jewel blue? In her head, planning to give it to 9 if it is since he's been loyal. Peacock shoots back with a no. But Yuri ain't having it and calls him out for fibbing. Melissa's scratching her head at Peacock's move, 'cause he's supposed to be smart, right? She calls him out for trying to pull a fast one in front of the judge. If he's as sharp as they say, he should know he'll get caught. Her words hit Peacock where it hurts. His ego. Digging deeper, Melissa figures out Peacock's portrayal as a genius character in the novels just based on what the author wrote. And there aren't many scenes showing off his smarts. As a main dude, any issues get fixed quick, then he's just the richest guy in town. Peacock Melody's a creation of the writer's imagination, ultimately limited by what the author thought up. So Melissa realizes the characters in the original story aren't like the ones she imagined. Once she got inside the story, she saw they're way more cowardly and dumb than she thought. Melissa tells Peacock to stop digging his own grave with lies and gets him to get back to the duel. Peacock tries to suss out clues by asking if Melissa's got a jewel, a book, or a weapon, but each time it's a no-go. He's running out of ideas. But Melissa, armed with clues and some novel knowledge, remembers a scene where Peacock gave Yuri a jewel during his proposal. So she takes a shot in the dark and guesses Peacock's got the blue diamond A. Hey A, the one and only lady of the waves. Grudgingly, Peacock admits she's right, and Melissa's over the moon. But Peacock won't take the L and demands to see what Melissa brought, thinking she cheated by not playing by the rules. He wants to check out the value himself. In Melissa's eyes, Peacock's just making himself look sad by refusing to accept defeat. She gets Yuri to open up the box, and inside, there's just a piece of paper. Peacock's fuming, accusing Melissa of cheating because a piece of paper ain't worth squat. Melissa explains that he's gotta read what's on the paper, because the real deal couldn't fit in the box. Yona steps up to explain what's written. She asks, "What's the most beautiful thing in the world?" Melissa replies, "No jewel can match her beauty." Then 9 chimes in, "What's the most precious thing in the world?" Melissa fires back, "No amount of money's worth more than her." So, the most valuable and precious thing? Melissa Fadabrat. Peacock's crying foul, but Melissa says there ain't no rule saying she can't be the answer. When she asks if Peacock thinks someone's worth less than a jewel, he shuts up, realizing he doesn't want to look bad in front of the woman he admires. In the end, he storms off in frustration. Come evening, Melissa watches from the balcony as Peacock's crew packs up and leaves Livton. Yuri shows up to thank Melissa for everything she's done. Melissa's glad she could help Yuri out and bring a little joy with her antics. With Yuri's cure and Peacock gone, it's time for Melissa to head home. But before she goes, she's got one last favor to ask Yuri. Hearing that Melissa needs a hand just amps up Yuri's excitement, and she vows to grant any favor Melissa asks for. It's clear Yuri feels deeply grateful to Melissa for kicking Peacock to the curb. Melissa lays out her request. She wants Nine's tongue and fangs back, considering he's a werewolf. Yuri explains that if Nine was just a regular dude, it'd be a piece of cake. But since he's a werewolf, there's a bunch of stuff to consider. Messing up could mean Nine's body rejects the fix, putting him in danger. Regular magic won't cut it, so they'll need something fancier like magic meds. Yuri might just be the first sorcerer to give this a shot. Yuri swears it'll work out because if it's Melissa's ask, nothing's impossible. Once the medicine's cooked up, Yuri will let Melissa know. Now Melissa's feeling a weight off her shoulders. If Nine gets sorted, it means she's ticked off all her Livton goals. She can finally hoof it back to the fodderbrat pad. But then Yuri gets all up in Melissa's grill with this mega sweet face, like a kitten begging for treats. Turns out Yuri wants Melissa to join her for dinner, cause her pops is keen to say thanks too. He's feeling the gratitude vibes toward Melissa. Not wanting to be rude, Melissa says yes to the dinner and plans to split tomorrow. Yuri's chuffed and says Yona and Nine gotta come too. With the dinner still a few hours off, Melissa figures she'll sneak in a quick 10-minute power nap. Next thing she knows, Yona's rapping on her door, telling her to get her butt up. Turns out, Melissa's been out like a light for 3 hours already. She hauls herself to the dining room, giving Yona some lip for not waking her sooner. She almost chews out Nine too, but backs off when she sees his puppy eyes. Yona's not having it though, calling out the double standard. Melissa busts into the dining room and gets hit with a shock. All the sorcerers are already sloshed from knocking back the booze. Baron Elizabeth, Yuri's adoptive dad, greets Melissa and plops her down next to him as a VIP. But for being tardy, Baron's got a punishment lined up. A big ol' bowl of booze for Melissa to chug. Melissa's not sure her stomach can handle it, worrying she might end up a hot mess. She's banking on her buddies swooping in to save her. But Yona's busy running a card game, and Nine's getting swarmed by the housemaids. Reluctantly, Melissa takes the bowl and downs it. After she's done, the party kicks into high gear. Everyone's guzzling wine like there's no tomorrow, getting totally wasted. Shockingly, Melissa ends up the last one standing. Guess she's got a knack for holding her liquor. She figures Yona and Nine are fine, probably having a sip or two. As for Yuri, Melissa decides to keep her lips sealed to save her dignity. Melissa goes on the hunt for Yona and Nine to get them back to their rooms. But out of nowhere, Nine wraps his arms tight around Melissa from behind. It turns out that Nine's completely wasted, and he's leaning on Melissa without even realizing it. With his weight bearing down, Melissa's struggling to budge and needs a hand. Luckily, she spots Yona. But when she takes a closer look, Yona's decked out in all kinds of bling she scored from her gambling wins. Melissa asks for a hand getting Nine off her, but Yona's too worried about her gold getting scratched to pitch in. Eventually, they manage to haul Nine to his room. Yona makes a swift exit, claiming she needs some shut-eye. Melissa figures she's off to stash her loot safely. Seeing Nine still fully clothed, Melissa decides to help out by peeling off his shoes and jacket. But as she's unbuttoning, Nine suddenly wraps his arms around her. Looks like he's having a nightmare. So Melissa soothes him back to sleep till he's out like a light, then sneaks back to her own room. Next morning, Yuri apologizes to Melissa for the wild antics of the night before. After the booze wore off, Melissa spilled the beans to Yuri about her drunken shenanigans. Whatever it was, it left Yuri mortified, and she's been saying sorry non-stop since. Now, back to the present. Melissa and crew are hoofing it toward the carriage, parked a ways off. Melissa spots Nine looking all sheepish and guilty about last night's blunder. She also notices his jacket's got fur all over it, so she tells him to give it a good shake to avoid blowing his cover as a werewolf. As Nine starts shaking, fur flies everywhere, and suddenly, there's a loud sneeze from the bushes. Melissa jumps, asking Nine to shake again to confirm what they heard. Sure enough, someone sneezes again. Melissa calls out to whoever's hiding, and out pops Jake, her little bro, who's allergic to fur. Turns out he was lurking there to keep tabs on Yuri. Jake protests, saying he's just trying to catch a glimpse of Yuri. But Melissa's frustrated to learn her brother doesn't realize that trailing someone home and spying on them is basically stalking. Before Melissa can confront Jake, Ian strolls by, heading straight for Yuri's place. He's taken aback, thinking Melissa had already split. Melissa's starting to feel like she's trapped in a loony bin. She's barely gotten rid of Peacock, and now here comes another annoyance. A bit later, they're all at Baron Elizabeth's joint for a tea bash, with Melissa there under the guise of Yuri's invite. Turns out, this shindig was cooked up at the request of those 4 pesky male leads. After the Peacock fiasco, Melissa's dead set on dealing with these guys seriously. It's obvious if things keep going like this, Yuri's gonna get smothered by all these pests. Plus, if Melissa just lets them cozy up like this, she's bound to become the target of their bogus tales. And she ain't about to be some damsel in distress like in the original tale. Nah, she's gonna take charge and kick these creeps to the curb so she can live life her way. Since this epiphany, whenever one of the male leads gets a chance to cozy up to Yuri, Melissa's there in a flash to intercept. Like now, she's keeping Yuri all to herself, chatting away over tea while ignoring the guys. They're even whispering, discussing their secret plan, the magic herbal fix for 9, which is good to go. But Ian's trying to hog Yuri's attention, thanking her for the tea party and hinting at giving her a gift. Yuri ain't interested, but Ian won't take no for an answer, spinning some yarn about how he once saved her, hoping to guilt her into accepting. Melissa sees through the whole charade. Yuri only agreed to this tea bash because she had no choice. As the leading lady, she's destined to be stuck to these guys through thick and thin. So Melissa jumps into the convo, schooling Ian on what it means when 2 gals are whispering away while a bunch of guys sit there clueless. It means they ain't interested in the guys, so they'd rather not include them in the chat. It's like those stubborn tea leaves clinging to the cup's bottom, begging to be tossed out. The 4 dudes are left speechless, and Melissa apologizes for killing the vibe. As a peace offering, she offers to make sure they all get home safe and sound. That ain't an escort, Melissa. That's a straight-up eviction. Yuri's over the moon that Melissa chased the guys off. And with the magic herbal remedy in hand for 9, Yuri's hoping Melissa can help break the curse that's got her in its grip. At the Faudebre house, Melissa takes 9 out to the balcony to admire the beauty of the night sky. But Melissa's real motive is to spice things up a bit, to hear 9's voice for the first time while enjoying the gorgeous view. She hands 9 a bottle of magic herb that can regrow his tongue and fangs, telling him that he's someone very important to her. 9 is taken aback by Melissa's words, as no one has ever considered him important before. With his gentle and weak demeanor, the werewolf community looked down on him, even to the point where the head of the Photon family ordered his fangs and tongue to be cut off when falsely accused of wrongdoing. Even after fleeing to the human world, 9 continued to feel worthless. He didn't hold a grudge, but at that point, he had given up on life. But now, someone is claiming that 9 is valuable to them, a woman who has given him so much and reignited his passion for life. 9 drinks the magic herb and immediately feels a painful sensation as his fangs and tongue rapidly regrow. And once his tongue is back, the first thing 9 wants to say is Lady Melissa. Melissa is thrilled to hear her name from 9's lips. But then 9 keeps repeating Lady Melissa over and over again, leaving Melissa puzzled, wondering if it's just a side effect of the medicine he just took. 9 kneels and begs Melissa to take his hand. Holding Melissa's hand, 9 expresses his gratitude for getting a new tongue and fangs, vowing to always serve Melissa, and even kissing her hand. Hearing this, Melissa is pleased inside, but she says she doesn't expect anything in return. And besides, it was Yuri who made the medicine. So Melissa suggests 9 keep up the good work and be nice if he runs into Yuri again. The next day, Melissa is excited because summer is almost over. And usually, there's a summer festival at the end of the season. Yona is surprised that Melissa is now interested in the summer festival because it's mostly attended by ordinary folks, and Melissa hasn't been fond of it in the past. Indeed, among the nobility, Melissa is known as a troublemaker villainess, but she's still a noblewoman. And for nobles who truly uphold their status, it's only proper not to participate in festivals meant for commoners. Melissa argues that her perspective on the summer festival has changed now. But Yona questions if Melissa isn't planning to cause trouble at the festival, which hits a nerve with Melissa because, truth be told, she plans to go to the festival to mess with Ian Basilios. Suddenly, Melissa also invites Nine to go on a date to the summer festival, leaving Nine momentarily shocked and speechless at the invitation. But when Melissa jokes about canceling the invitation, Nine quickly accepts. Melissa tells Nine not to feel nervous because the date she's referring to is more like accompanying her, just like when Nine was her partner at the previous dance event. Besides, they won't be alone at the festival because Yuri and Ian will be there too. Melissa remembers from their last meeting that Yuri mentioned she already got an invitation from Ian to go to the summer festival together. Melissa knows that the summer festival will be one of the biggest events in the novel's storyline, so Yuri, as the main female character, won't be able to avoid it. Therefore, Melissa decides to take advantage of this opportunity to mess with Ian. But now, Melissa worries that during the festival, others might misunderstand when they see Melissa, Ian, and Yuri together. It might seem like Melissa and Yuri are competing for Ian. And surely everyone will think that Melissa is a villainess who is disrupting the date because she doesn't want her man stolen by another woman. Especially if Ian, with his narcissistic nature, thinks that Melissa has been pretending to break off their engagement all this time. Melissa always interferes with Ian's relationship with Yuri because she doesn't want Ian to be stolen by another woman. Imagining if Ian misunderstands like that makes Melissa want to really smack Ian. Snapped out of her own thoughts, Melissa asks Nine not to disappear during the festival this time. With his sweet smile and handsome face, Nine promises not to run away again. Seeing Nine's expression like that for some reason makes Melissa feel jittery, but she quickly covers up her feelings by thinking about what outfit she'll wear to the summer festival. Days pass until the day of the summer festival arrives. But Melissa is shocked to see that the festival is just like a Korean night market. When writing the novel, the author surely couldn't imagine what a Western-style festival would look like. Even so, Melissa is still excited to join the festival. Melissa asks Nine what he thinks of the festival. It turns out Nine is very impressed because it's his first time attending a festival. Melissa sees Nine's expression of pure joy, even thinking his tail might pop out and wag from excitement, making her look at Nine's rear end, but instead of a tail, she sees wow, a perfectly shaped butt that Melissa likes. Melissa and Nine continue their journey until they see a crowd of people clamoring to catch a glimpse of a celebrity. Turns out, the celebrity is Ian, accompanied by Yuri. With a mix of narcissism and shamelessness, Ian apologizes to Yuri because his good looks attract attention from other women, which might make Yuri jealous. But Ian assures Yuri that he's not interested in other women at all. Yuri, with her cold demeanor, only retorts. No wonder Ian responds to them one by one, since he's not interested anyway. But Ian still insists that he does it because they are still royalty, leaving Melissa dumbfounded. Melissa realizes that Ian and Yuri, being protagonists in the novel, have a special charisma that attracts everyone's attention. Unlike Nine, who, despite being handsome, doesn't get much attention, Ian always gets swarmed by people wherever he goes. The reason is simple. Ian is a protagonist, while Nine is just an extra character. Yuri notices Melissa's presence and approaches her. Yuri is very happy because Melissa came as promised. Nine also thanks Yuri for her magic herbal medicine that successfully healed him. But when Nine addresses Melissa as Miss Melissa as if they have a very close relationship, Yuri doesn't like it because Nine should address Melissa as Lady. This leads to an argument between Nine and Yuri. Ian interrupts the conversation by greeting Melissa and saying that since Melissa pleaded with Yuri earlier, Ian is willing to agree to all of them going to the festival together. Ian even slightly taunts by asking why Nine is here too. Is he now Melissa's partner? To retaliate, Melissa immediately hugs Nine's arm, much to Nine's delight and Ian's sense of competition. Ian tries to reciprocate by showing affection to Yuri, but Yuri quickly prepares herself defensively, thwarting Ian's plan. Ian then claims that he just wants to enjoy the festival with Yuri, so he'll behave well and won't make a fuss about Melissa's behavior. Melissa is quite annoyed by Ian's cheating behavior, but holds herself back to retaliate later. The summer festival has many game booths and sales stands. According to the original novel, Ian is exceptionally good at playing all the game booths and wins many prizes, charming Yuri with his charisma. However, the story is different now. There's someone unbeatable here. Since a young age, this person has had extraordinary talent in conquering all the game booths, even making the owners of the night market game booths ban this person from playing again. And that person is none other than Melissa. Since Melissa already knows the novel storyline, she remembers that soon there will be an event where a coveted game prize will appear that Yuri desires. And then Ian will immediately join the game to win the prize for Yuri. However, now there's Melissa, so the story will be different this time. Yuri points out a doll that she finds very cute, and Melissa is shocked to realize that the doll Yuri finds cute is actually not cute at all, but looks very sinister. Melissa is even more surprised when Nine comes beside her and says that the doll is very cute, making Melissa wonder if she's the one mistaken or if Nine and Yuri have a strange attraction. But seeing Ian's shocked expression, it seems that Nine and Yuri are the ones mistaken. Nine and Yuri explain that the doll looks cute because it resembles Melissa, especially its eyes. No wonder Nine and Yuri like that sinister-looking doll. Awakening from her trauma after seeing the doll of herself, Melissa quickly pays to participate in the Whack-a-Mole game that offers the doll as a prize if she gets the top score. However, Ian also hurriedly pays and shamelessly cuts the line to play the game first. Having the advantage as the main character, Ian, who just played the game, still managed to play very well, and he even managed to get the top score, which is 2,000. This made all the spectators cheer for Ian's name because of his handsomeness and skill. Ian shines with confidence. However, when Ian is about to claim his prize, Melissa immediately protests, saying that she can also break the top score and the doll will be hers. The stand attendant cancels giving the prize to Ian and invites Melissa to try the game. After inserting a coin, Melissa focuses her greatest strength, which she always uses to defeat all games. When the game starts, she immediately unleashes her power, Rage. With each strike, she imagines hitting the male protagonists, Ian, the cheater, Jake, who always belittles Melissa, Jack, who once hurt Nine, and Peacock, who always flaunts his wealth. In the end, Melissa's score is twice as high as Ian's, at 5,000. Melissa gets a doll that looks like her and immediately gives it to Nine, making Nine very happy and Ian speechless. Melissa then challenges Ian to redeem his defeat in other games. But Ian can't do anything as Melissa dominates every game. Whether it's the shell game, cookie game, dart game, boxing, or basketball, Melissa knows all the game tricks. This completely shatters Ian's mental state and self-esteem. Meanwhile, Nine and Yuri are very happy because they receive many prizes from Melissa. After winning all the games, Melissa remembers that there is still a special prize she can get for breaking the top score in many games. Melissa approaches the prize exchange stand where the attendant initially belittles her ability to get the top score. However, the attendant is shocked when Melissa shows evidence that she has not only broken one, but has gotten the top score in all the games. Therefore, Melissa requests the main prize as stipulated in the festival advertisement. As advertised in the festival, the main prize is a red pearl ring, which is very expensive because it's a magic item. It seems that the festival committee dared to make this expensive ring as the prize because it's a way to promote the festival. The festival committee also assumed that no one would win the main prize, so the expensive ring was never actually prepared during the festival. Because he doesn't believe it, the attendant at the main prize stand even directly asks all the game stand attendants, who all confirm that Melissa did indeed get the top score. Melissa demands the main prize, but the attendant claims that the main prize is out of stock. Melissa doesn't believe it because she remembers from the original novel that the attendant used the same excuse to Ian. But after Ian threatened them, they ended up replacing the main prize with another expensive item. Melissa tries to remember what threat Ian used, but because she's deep in thought, she unintentionally reveals her demon-like expression, which terrifies the attendant at the stand. So scared, the stand attendant immediately offers a replacement prize even before Melissa threatens. The replacement prize is a tiara. Unlike the original story in the novel, where the attendant gave Ian a necklace as a replacement prize. Then, during the summer festival fireworks celebration, Ian would give the necklace to Yuri while professing his love. Maybe because of Melissa's involvement, it influenced the prize received as well. Although it looks beautiful, the tiara is lightweight and cheap, so Melissa feels it's not suitable for Yuri to wear. Without any malicious intent, but because she's naturally inclined to do evil, when Melissa sees Ian, she spontaneously puts the tiara on Ian's head. Initially, Ian is just shocked and silent, but a few moments later, Ian starts crying uncontrollably, shocking Melissa, Yuri, and Nine. Melissa tries to calm Ian down by saying that the tiara is the main prize and looks suitable, but Ian just cries even harder. Nine then whispers to Melissa that it's very offensive to put a princess tiara on a real crown prince's head. This makes Melissa realize that in this romance fantasy world, a princess is considered someone incompetent and essentially just a pretty woman sold in marriage. In his tears, Ian asks why Melissa hates him so much. Ian feels completely shattered because he lost so badly to Melissa in all the games earlier. Even though Melissa always said she liked Ian a lot, even pretending to ask to break off their engagement when she just wanted Ian's attention. Hearing this makes Melissa lose her composure, so without holding back, Melissa firmly explains her reasons for hating Ian. First, because Ian has no shame. He already has a fiancé but still behaves intimately with many women. If Ian truly feels that Yuri is his true love and wants a serious relationship, he should have broken off his engagement with Melissa first. The second reason is because Ian has a very sad way of thinking and behaving. Throughout this time, Ian has treated others like objects, to be manipulated as he pleases, without considering their feelings because he's a crown prince. Don't make your own assumptions, like assuming a villainess won't be hurt or a saint will accept his love no matter what. Now, let's look at Ian's origins. Ian is a prince not born from the current queen, but from a lady-in-waiting. He's the eldest, but not the true heir. Although the emperor has appointed him as the crown prince, the second and third princes, born after Ian, always watch his position, ready to seize it if the opportunity arises. So, if Ian continues to be indifferent to his people and neglects state affairs for unimportant matters, the Fodabrat family will deem him unworthy of being a king. Losing the support of the Fodabrat family would jeopardize Ian's position. Ian initially underestimated Melissa's statement about the Fodabrat family's decision not being in Melissa's hands, but in the Duke's. Melissa explained that while the Duke and Jake currently support Ian, their reason is because Melissa used to love Ian. But whoever becomes the king, the Fodabrat family will remain a powerful and influential family. So the Fodabrat family is never dependent on Ian. The Duke has always granted Melissa's requests and allowed her to go wherever she wants. Hence, it's not impossible for the Duke to change his decision after hearing Melissa's explanation. Realizing his position's weakness, Ian can only remain silent and cover his face, asking what Melissa really wants him to do. Since Ian can't defeat Melissa in the festival games, he'll likely struggle to win the throne without the support of powerful noble families. Therefore, Melissa suggests that Ian should continue to maintain his handsome appearance and stop behaving inappropriately. Then Melissa leaves Ian alone in the middle of the festival. Melissa, Nine, and Yuri continue their journey until Nine suggests they watch the fireworks display together, which they all agree to. The beauty of the fireworks illuminating the night sky is mesmerizing, and Melissa and Nine seem to be enjoying the view. But where's Yuri? They accidentally run into Yuri's siblings, so Yuri has to be with them during the fireworks display, although she's reluctant to leave Melissa alone with Nine. In the midst of the increasingly lively fireworks, 9 suddenly says something that surprises Melissa, making both her and 9 blush. However, what truly shocks Melissa is seeing someone behind 9. It turns out to be Jake, holding a camera. As the final firework explodes, a loud bang fills the sky, along with the sound of Melissa's sanity snapping upon realizing her brother's behavior as a stalker. Jake secretly takes pictures of Yuri from a distance. 9 then realizes that Melissa is going crazy again because of something else and didn't notice 9's earlier remark. The next day at the Photobrat family residence, Melissa is seen holding back frustration by resting her head on the table. But Yona comes in and suggests that if Melissa is having trouble with bowel movements, it's better to call a doctor right away. Yona also reports that 9 has been whining since yesterday. Perhaps they both ate something wrong at the festival yesterday. Melissa remembers that last night during the fireworks celebration, it seemed like 9 said something. But at that moment, Melissa's attention was diverted by seeing Jake, the stalker. Just when Melissa finished dealing with Ayan, now it's her only brother behaving embarrassingly. Although Jake claimed to stalk Yuri to protect her, not only did he follow and watch Yuri as she went with another guy, but he also secretly took pictures of Yuri. That action is truly inappropriate. What makes it harder is that when Melissa was about to advise Jake, he quickly escaped and hid. So, to solve this problem at its roots, Melissa plans to torture Jake until he stops stalking. Otherwise, Yuri's privacy will continue to be in danger. After checking the calendar, Melissa finds out that the hunting competition will be held soon. Melissa asks Yona to get ready because they'll participate in the competition. And that's when Melissa will make the hunter feel what it's like to be hunted. In another room, 9 is seen cleaning the room with a female servant named Haney. 9 looks exhausted and unenthusiastic. Haney asks if there's a problem since 9 just went to the summer festival with Melissa. 9 tries to assure everything's fine, but Haney realizes something and bluntly asks if 9 has been rejected by Melissa, making 9 very surprised and coughing. 9 replies that he hasn't been rejected. Haney suggests that 9 is amazing, but unfortunately Melissa is engaged, and it will be difficult for 9 to compete with a crown prince. 9 explains that Ian is not his rival because Melissa doesn't like Ian. Even though Melissa likes someone else, and as long as she doesn't drive him away, 9 promises to always be faithful to Melissa. 9 feels he belongs to Melissa, and Melissa doesn't have an obligation to be owned by him. Before leaving the room, 9 explains that the reason he feels disappointed is not because he's rejected, but because he failed to express his feelings to Melissa. Time passes until finally, autumn arrives. Melissa is seen in the garden with 9 and Yuri. Apparently, for the past month, Melissa has been training with Yuri. Next week, the hunting competition will take place. Melissa and Yuri will participate in the event. The competition will be hosted by the royal palace, and each noble family will send one representative to participate, which means the protagonist guys will also be there. Therefore, for her plan to succeed, Melissa will ask for 9 and Yuri's help during the competition. Now let's hear the story of how the hunting competition came to be. 150 years ago, the kingdom of Basilios was infested with demonic monsters. Thankfully, a grand sorcerer sealed away all of these monsters, and it's safe now. But the long history of seeking to subjugate monsters under the leadership of the royal family has transformed into the hunting competition of today, which occurs every year to never forget our past history of being trampled by demonic monsters. Of course, this tradition has lost much of its meaning today and has just become a social field for nobles. We return to the competition where Melissa has just arrived. The other nobles look at Melissa strangely. Then comes a man with an ugly face. In the romance fantasy world story, main characters always have handsome faces, whether they're villains or heroes. If someone has an ugly face, they're just a side character. Except for 9, who somehow still has a handsome face even though he's just an extra character. The man with the ugly face then mocks Melissa, saying she's desperate for the crown prince's attention and suggests she cancel her hunting plans, because she'll only ruin her delicate hands. Melissa, considering him unimportant, ignores him, making the ugly man very angry. He grabs Melissa's hand and asks her to apologize for being rude. Melissa easily pulls her hand away, surprising the ugly man with her strength. Melissa explains that she has been chosen as the representative of the House of Fadabra. The Duke and Emperor have already allowed it, so there's no need for unnecessary fights. And if the ugly man continues to cause trouble, it means he's insulting the Duke and Emperor's decision. So it's better to stay quiet or face consequences. This scares the ugly man and he stops his antics. A few moments later, after Melissa finishes eating, she pretends to have a digestive problem and needs to go to the restroom alone. But because Yona notices Melissa's unconvincing act, she adds an explanation to the other servants that Melissa is indeed having constipation issues, so the other servants will wait for Melissa there. This makes Melissa embarrassed, so she quickly leaves. In the forest, Melissa is seen following a magical light to a tree. There, Melissa asks Jake to come out of hiding. At first, there's no response. But after Melissa draws her sword and threatens to force him out, Jake finally agrees to show himself. Without greeting his sister, Jake just asks what Melissa wants from him. Annoyed by his impolite behavior, Melissa shows a magical circle in her hand, which then glows and shoots light that envelops Jake's body. Wrapping him up and pop, Jake's body turns into a bunny. The hunting trumpet signaling the start of the hunt has been blown. Ian and the other nobles immediately urge their horses to capture as many game animals as possible. But Yuri realizes that Melissa hasn't returned because Melissa's horse is still where it was, and Yuri worries that her magic didn't work. Yuri remembers a while back when Melissa begged Yuri to find a way for her to use magic even just once. Although it seemed impossible at the time because Melissa asked, Yuri promised to find a way to fulfill that request. Since they can't wait any longer, Yuri finally sets off hunting on a wooden horse powered by magic. At the same time, Melissa runs out of the forest and grabs her horse. Breathless from her run, Melissa tells Yuri that their plan has worked. And now Melissa will join the hunt riding her newly trained horse. Melissa mounts her black horse named Black Veil, the strongest horse like a demon among the Fadabrat family's horses. Being very wild, Black Veil is hard to tame, but Melissa, who has a talent for taming fierce animals like guard dogs, Leaf knows how to get Black Veil to obey her commands. Melissa promises Black Veil that if he can do his job well today, she will let Black Veil chew on Jake's hair. Hearing this, Black Veil gets very excited. Even before Melissa finishes speaking, Black Veil is already running very fast, making it difficult for Melissa to control the demonic horse. In the forest, a group of nobles on horseback is seen hunting. One of them is the ugly-faced man who Melissa scolded earlier. He's still grumbling to himself because he's still angry and planning to get back at Melissa. But suddenly, Melissa appears with her demonic horse at lightning speed. The ugly man is very surprised, and in his eyes, he sees Melissa as a terrifying warrior of darkness heading to the battlefield. When in reality, Melissa is struggling to control her wild horse. Like the wind, Melissa passes the group of ugly men, leaving them speechless in disbelief. The scene now shows Jake the bunny running as fast as he can. Jake cries at his unfortunate fate of becoming the hunted, when all he wanted was to gaze at Yuri all day. Jake regrets being hit by magic when he was off guard because as far as Jake knew, Melissa couldn't use magic. Jake hears Melissa's voice approaching and calling his name, but Jake just runs away. At this point, Jake truly feels that Melissa is a very frightening figure. Even though there is a wolf chasing Jake, Jake feels that Melissa is more threatening to his life. After some time, the magic circle in Melissa's hand begins to fade, indicating that the effects of her transformation magic are also about to wear off. Knowing this, Melissa signals to the wolf to direct Jake the bunny's escape to a specific location. It turns out the wolf is 9 in the form of a wolf. Its color changed using magic. Jake the bunny arrives at the location where Yuri is already waiting, and at that moment, his body changes back to human form. Jake is confused to see Yuri there, but when he sees Melissa, he unconsciously trembles in fear. Melissa acts grateful that Jake has safely returned to human form. She argues that although she accidentally turned Jake into a bunny, it's thanks to her protection that Jake wasn't caught by wolf or other hunters. Hearing this, Jake becomes angry with Melissa because he feels he never asked for Melissa's protection and he could protect himself. Melissa retaliates by saying that if Jake is angry, then Yuri must feel the same, because Jake's behavior of always secretly watching Yuri under the guise of protection, even though Yuri never asked for it. If we think about it deeper, it's indeed creepy to have someone always following us. Instead of protecting, that person might do harm when they see an opportunity. Looking back, Jake is reminded that such behavior is not romantic. If Jake really likes Yuri, then he shouldn't be cowardly and should speak directly to Yuri. Yuri, who is there, walks towards Jake. It turns out that Jake and Yuri have never spoken directly before. Yuri only saw Jake when he was arguing with Melissa. Jake is nervous as he is about to speak to Yuri for the first time. But to his surprise, the first thing Yuri says only reinforces the fact that Jake is a creepy stalker, with various criticisms that shatter Jake's mental state. Finally, Yuri asks Jake not to follow her anymore and to stay away from her. Jake kneels helplessly, receiving all of Yuri's responses. Seeing his brother in such a devastated state, Melissa only hopes that Jake realizes his mistake and improves himself. But suddenly, a trumpet sounds, indicating that the hunting competition has ended, which shouldn't have ended so quickly. Melissa and Yuri quickly return to the starting point to find out why the competition ended early. And Melissa is shocked when she arrives because there is a huge pile of game animals. It's no wonder the competition was immediately stopped because such a large number of prey would be impossible for other participants to beat. But Yuri's face quickly turns bitter when she sees the figure of the hunter atop the heap of animal carcasses. That figure is Jack from the werewolf clan. Just as Melissa finishes dealing with Jake, now comes another troublemaker. When Melissa and Nine are spotted, Jack Photon immediately insults them and walks towards them. Everyone feels worried and even hesitant to move, not wanting to get involved in trouble with a werewolf. It's understandable because werewolf clans are known for their strength and are considered influential among the nobility. Melissa responds by saying she thought Jack was dead since he hadn't been seen for so long. Jack explains that he's been bored because there haven't been any tea parties at Yuri's place, so the sorcerers kept kicking him out of their residence every time he tried to see Yuri. And with the tight security at the Fodabrat family's residence, it's quite difficult to disturb Melissa or Nine. So when he heard about the hunting competition, Jack immediately signed up. Melissa suggests that Jack better stay in the forest rather than constantly getting beaten up every time he meets her. Hearing this, Jack's anger flares up and he charges towards Melissa. Melissa manages to dodge Jack's blow and spontaneously strikes him with an object in her hand. Melissa's punch is so powerful that the object she used to strike shatters into pieces, and Jack is thrown high into the air. Initially, Melissa thought it was her sword that broke, but it turns out her sword is still at her waist. So, what was the object that shattered earlier? At that moment, the sound of crying calling out Monica is heard, which turns out to be Jake Fodabrat. Monica is the name of Jake's beloved rifle, now shattered into pieces. Only then does Melissa realize why a werewolf would faint instantly after one strike. It's because he used a weapon belonging to a protagonist. Jake, the skilled sniper who can easily eliminate his opponents, is now sobbing uncontrollably at the sight of Monica, beyond repair. Melissa promises to buy a new rifle, but Jake explains that Monica cannot be replaced. Monica is special because it possesses power bestowed by the gods. Melissa becomes very puzzled by the situation around her. In front of her lies a werewolf who fainted after she hit him. Beside her is her younger brother, heartbroken and crying over his damaged rifle. And behind her is Nine, who forgot to transform into a human and is now pretending to be a pet wolf. This unusual sight shocks all the nobles who are watching. Amidst this uncomfortable situation, Ian arrives, causing Melissa to become even more emotional, thinking Ian will only complicate matters further. But unexpectedly, Ian seems to want to protect Melissa. As the Emperor's representative at the competition, Ian decides to end the event then and there and asks the nobles not to discuss what happened today. Ian also offers the royal family's help to take care of Jack Photon. Melissa thanks Ian for his assistance, but insists on handling Jack Photon herself and only asks to borrow a carriage to transport Jack. Now, Jake, the sniper, and Jack the werewolf are in the carriage, ready to head to the Fodabrat residence. At that moment, Yuri arrives and offers to accompany them to the Fodabrat residence so she can act as a doctor to heal Jack. Yuri is worried that if Jack doesn't wake up, the Photon family will react aggressively. Melissa is very grateful for Yuri's help, as it alleviates some of the concerns she had. As the entourage reaches the Fodabrat family residence, the servants are busy preparing for their guests' needs, especially since there's a wounded werewolf among them. The commotion attracts the attention of the Duke himself, who arrives to inquire about what happened. Melissa explains briefly that she inadvertently knocked out a werewolf and that Duke's beloved son, Jake, needs some time alone as he has just lost something precious. Upon hearing this, the Duke imagines Jake losing his 2 valuable bell balls. Melissa also introduces Yuri to the Duke and promises to take responsibility for matters concerning the werewolf. After finishing her explanation, Melissa quickly excuses herself along with her personal servants, not giving Duke the chance to ask more questions. Melissa heads straight to her room and immediately removes her clothes, wanting to relax her mind with a bath after facing all the ongoing problems. It's as if the gods of this novel world intentionally give Melissa a brief respite, only to throw another problem her way. No sooner has she mentioned it, another problem arises. Haney reports to Melissa that Yuri is nowhere to be found. Melissa quickly changes her clothes and orders all the servants to help search for Yuri. After searching for a long time with no sign of Yuri anywhere, not even 9 can find a trace of Yuri's scent, as if Yuri has vanished into thin air. Melissa, knowing the plot of the novel, actually worries that the main events of the story have already begun, even though they shouldn't happen yet. Melissa and 9 continue their search in the garden. Suddenly, 9 trembles and points to something, asking what it is. It turns out 9 is pointing at Melissa's guard dog named Leaf. Melissa is puzzled by 9's question since 9 should already be familiar with Leaf. Upon observing Leaf, Melissa is shocked to discover that Leaf can talk. It seems that Leaf, who also has werewolf lineage, is being possessed by someone's supernatural power to convey a message. Melissa's fear seems to be justified. Those with such supernatural powers are only found among the werewolf clan. Based on the novel, Melissa knows there's a werewolf who possesses the strongest supernatural power, but this person is a psychopath who enjoys doing evil things for personal pleasure. In the novel, when he learns that Jack, his subordinate, is in love with Yuri, he kidnaps Yuri for his own amusement. Now, the villain has appeared, possessing Leaf's body to convey a message, stating that he has successfully kidnapped Yuri and challenging Melissa, 9, and Jack to come and rescue the princess. Now, let's dive into one of the side stories of this world, which isn't detailed in the novel. The villain, as it turns out, is named Mizen Photon. In the novel, he's depicted as a handsome man with long hair. But unlike Melissa, who's a villainess, Mizen is quite popular as a male villain character. He's known as the commander of the Photon family's military command and the next heir to the Photon family. But he's also 9's older twin brother. Back at the Fodabrat residence, Jack gets furious upon learning that Yuri has been kidnapped. But when Melissa reveals that the perpetrator is Mizen, who's Jack's superior, Jack's confidence immediately falters. Jack's reaction is quite understandable because he's still not strong enough to face Mizen. And currently, Melissa is even stronger than Jack. According to the original story in the novel, the kidnapping of Yuri becomes Jack's moment of awakening, enabling him to defeat Mizen and take over as the leader of all werewolf commands. The moment of awakening is when a werewolf's hidden power emerges, making them much stronger. This moment can be triggered when the werewolf experiences an intense emotional upheaval. However, in the novel, the kidnapping incident occurs in winter. Since it's still early autumn, it's not yet time for Jack's awakening moment. Yona reminds them that the invitation to rescue Yuri is definitely a trap. Melissa realizes this, but decides they still have to carry out the rescue because the kidnapping happened at the Fodabrat residence. Melissa has informed the Elizabeth family about Yuri's abduction, but since the powers of sorcerers and werewolves are highly conflicting, it would be very dangerous for sorcerers to intervene. Moreover, Mizan has probably set various traps preventing sorcerers from using their magic. Therefore, Melissa decides it's best for them to handle the rescue operation themselves. Upon hearing this decision, Yona immediately wants to ask a question. But before she can, Melissa quickly offers to pay Yona 4 times her monthly salary for this dangerous job. Without further questions, Yona accepts the offer. Although Melissa actually questions her decision to bring Yona, a female servant, on a dangerous mission, she feels that Yona always provides unexpected solutions to problems. Not to be left out, Melissa also invites Jack to join the rescue mission. Even though Jack probably won't listen to Melissa's orders, as the deputy leader of the werewolf family command, Jack will surely be useful in battle. What worries Melissa a bit is actually Nine. Since meeting Mizan, he hasn't seemed okay. Perhaps returning to the werewolf forest reminded him of bad memories. But Nine responds with a smile, saying he's fine and that he even thought about returning there at least once. After deciding to embark on the rescue mission, they quickly prepare their belongings and immediately begin their journey. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Yuri is sitting on the floor, imprisoned in a box, strengthened with charms so she can't escape. However, Yuri seems to be talking to an unseen entity, and only Yuri can hear it. The entity questions why Yuri isn't trying to fix the changed storyline. In her heart, Yuri replies that she likes the current storyline because it deviates from the usual one. Even Mizan has changed now, because in the original story, Mizan shouldn't have kidnapped Yuri. The entity also asks Yuri to captivate all the hearts of the male protagonists as she should. Yuri responds that she has already done that thousands of times and feels she doesn't need it anymore. Although Yuri speaks openly to herself, Mizan doesn't realize it, reminding Yuri that Mizan is also a character who just follows the storyline like Yuri herself. But Melissa is different now. The ferocious-looking Duke's daughter, who should also be a character who acts according to the predetermined storyline. When Yuri thinks deeply, Melissa's behavior isn't actually much different from that of a child, but just because of that, everyone considers and calls her a villainess. And in the arms of the Crown Prince, Yuri will witness Melissa's sad condition, while Yuri herself gets a happy ending. But now, things are different, making Yuri wonder what has caused Melissa to change. However, the entity reminds Yuri to act like a proper heroine. Go to the royal banquet, host a tea party, be docile, and let herself be kidnapped. But Yuri doesn't feel like a heroine because her fate and actions are always dictated by the entity. In her mind, Yuri questions why Melissa can act freely like that. Does Melissa not hear the whispers from the entity to act according to the predetermined story? Or does Melissa hear them but refuse to obey? Whatever the reason, for now, Yuri is sure that the one who will come to rescue her will definitely be Jack, just like in the original story, and no one else could possibly save her. The werewolf residence is located very far away, so if Melissa's team were to go there in the usual way, it would take a very long time, possibly resulting in Yuri already having a new life there because of the length of time. That's why Melissa asks for the sorcerer's help to create teleportation magic. Since it's not possible to teleport directly into the werewolf territory, Melissa's team is teleported to the nearest location to the werewolf forest. To assist Melissa, Baron even agrees to come and help. He genuinely expresses his gratitude. But Melissa always remembers the time when Baron was drunk, so she doesn't pay attention to what he's saying. Long story short, Melissa's team successfully transports near the werewolf forest. But Melissa is surprised to find that the forest they're about to enter is incredibly dense and difficult to navigate. However, Nine explains that it's all just an illusion. He then takes a branch and breaks it, instantly making the dense forest disappear and revealing the path into the werewolf territory. Nine explains that the illusion is a remnant of ancient magic, created by someone unknown, but it's still used to conceal the entrance to the werewolf's residence. So, werewolves don't actually hate magic. They just can't be influenced by it. Then Jack arrives, boasting about how he never looked for magic branches like that to dispel the illusion. Previously, Jack just ran forcefully into the illusion and smashed anything until a branch like that was accidentally crushed. 9 adds that he predicts the road will be full of traps, but there's no need to worry because he's familiar with them. Melissa feels very proud because 9 is very reliable. But Jack feels avoiding those traps is unnecessary because he's used to just charging through them all. Melissa forbids Jack from acting recklessly like that because she doesn't want him to trigger traps and cause a commotion while infiltrating to rescue Yuri. However, Jack still doesn't care and activates almost all the traps. Despite being hit by a powerful explosion, Jack remains unharmed thanks to his high body resilience. Melissa tries to contain her emotions, but whenever there's something suspicious and Melissa tells Jack not to touch it, he rushes to grab it even faster. Until finally, boom. Goodbye, and thank you for following the story up to this point. See you again in another story. Oops, it turns out Melissa was daydreaming about the ending of the story. And unconsciously, Melissa has now arrived near the werewolf palace. Melissa is shocked because previously she had lost consciousness due to being very angry with Jack. Melissa becomes very sad when she sees many bloodstains on her hands. Melissa thinks that because she was so angry, she unconsciously killed Jack. Instead of telling the truth, Yona teasingly confirms Melissa's assumption. Luckily, 9 is there to explain what really happened. Melissa had managed to control her emotions for quite some time. But halfway through the journey, Melissa finally beat Jack nearly to death, and only then did Jack become more willing to cooperate. So, when they arrived near the palace, Melissa called Jack, who was now very afraid of being beaten by Melissa again. But surprisingly, Melissa smiled sweetly and said she would let Jack go now, leaving Jack shocked to hear it. Melissa explained that previously she asked Jack to sneak in quietly to prevent him from getting hurt. But after seeing Jack's resilience, Melissa felt that Jack might be able to defeat Mizan. So Melissa allowed Jack to go find Mizan and defeat him right away. Seeing Melissa's drastically changed attitude made Jack suspicious of what Melissa was really planning. Jack went away feeling uneasy. 9 is proud of Melissa's kindness in letting Jack go, but deep down, Melissa lets Jack go to use him as bait. 9 plans to sneak in alone to ensure Yuri's whereabouts inside the palace first. But Melissa says it isn't necessary because she's very sure Yuri is in the palace, precisely in a room with a blue door located at the highest point of the palace. Hearing that, 9 says he knows the secret way to get to that room, and they immediately set off there. Melissa finds it strange that Yona and 9 don't question how she knows where Yuri is. But Melissa decides to stay focused on this rescue process. Inside the palace, Mizan realizes Jack's arrival, so he leaves Yuri alone to confront Jack. Yuri, who is inside the prison box, feels the palace tremble due to Mizan and Jack's fight. However, the tremors are not as intense and long-lasting as usual. Yuri thinks maybe this time Jack defeats Mizan faster, and Jack will arrive soon to rescue her. The entity continues whispering to Yuri to get ready to greet Jack according to the usual scenario, welcoming the knight who comes to rescue Yuri, the pitiful female protagonist. In her heart, Yuri is already fed up with being treated like an eternal puppet because she always follows the same scenario repeatedly. But when the door to the room is opened, Yuri is shocked to see that it's Melissa, Yona, and 9 who come, even though at that moment Melissa is scolding something to Yona. Yuri is speechless, unable to believe what she sees, and Melissa becomes a little worried seeing Yuri confined in such a small box. Yuri covers her mouth and tears of happiness flow from her cheeks because unlike the original scenario, this time she is not rescued by a knight or an individual, but by friends she deeply cares about. She wants to express her feelings, but she refrains from doing so for fear that the entity might get very angry. Elsewhere, Mizan's face is covered in bloodstains. Apparently, Mizan has already defeated Jack. But Mizan isn't satisfied with just defeating Jack. To satisfy his thirst for blood, Mizan plans to eliminate Melissa and 9. Now let's delve into the story of young 9 when he was just 11 years old. All werewolves were given the family name Photon at birth. However, Since childhood, 9 was deemed unworthy of bearing the Photon name because he could not use charm powers or possess great fighting abilities. Young 9 preferred to spend his days reading books. Meanwhile, his twin brother, Mizen, was already capable of using many charm powers, and was recognized as the most talented charm user in the history of the Photon family. According to the chief of the Photon family, Mizen was very deserving of being part of the Photon family, while 9 was considered unnecessary. Therefore, the chief ordered 9 to no longer show himself in front of the chief. Since then, 9's existence seemed to have completely disappeared from his own kind. No one cared about 9 anymore. When he was starving nearly to death, 9 had to scavenge for food in the forest. When 9 fell and got sick, no one came to check on him. 9 continued to try to survive in his difficulties, but young 9 could not hold back his tears due to the pain in his heart from being abandoned. Back to the present, adult 9 stares at the corner of the room, remembering his past self, enduring alone. Suddenly, 9 snaps out of his reverie upon hearing Melissa's sword strike the box containing Yuri. Unfortunately, because the prison box is also enchanted with a magic blocking charm, the attack from the magic sword will not have any effect. Melissa asks 9 for help if he knows how to remove the charm box. 9, who knows many theories about charms, explains that the box can only be removed if the person who issued the charm power has lost their life or their body becomes very weak. Melissa realizes that none of them will be able to face Mizen at the moment. Although 9's face is smiling, he is actually very afraid, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Melissa tries to calm 9 by promising to always protect him. And if they cannot defeat Mizen, then they can try to move Yuri along with the box. 9 is deeply touched by Melissa's concern, but Yuri, jealous of 9's closeness to Melissa, starts banging on the charm box to get attention, to refocus on the current emergency. Melissa asks 9 and Yona to get ready in their positions to try to lift Yuri. Unfortunately, at that moment, the door to the room opens and someone covered in blood enters. Mizen laughs at Melissa's team's attempt to lift the charm box. Melissa draws her magic sword, telling Mizen to stop all his talk. Mizen, with a striking resemblance to 9, insults 9 as a shameless traitor who should have died at birth. Hearing this, Melissa immediately bursts with anger, but 9 restrains her and stands protectively in front of her. Seeing this, Mizen scoffs even more, saying that 9 has now become a human's pet dog and lists various shortcomings of 9 to embarrass him. To make matters worse, Mizen promises to welcome 9 back into the werewolf tribe if 9 dares to take Melissa's life. However, 9 firmly refuses and explains that one of the reasons for his return is to announce that he has decided to cast away the Photon family name and is no longer part of them. 9 admits that when he was young, he was once very desperate. But instead of ending his life in the werewolf world, young 9 chose to try to survive in the human world. Once again, with a loud voice, 9 asserts that he is no longer part of the Photon family, dedicating his life to Melissa now. Upon hearing that the Photon family name is cast aside for Melissa's sake, Mizen suddenly launches an attack towards Melissa. Luckily, Melissa is agile enough to evade the attack. However, Mizen launches a second attack, even stronger, capable of destroying the palace walls. On the third attack, Mizen places a charm near Melissa's feet that instantly explodes. Fortunately, 9 manages to pull Melissa's hand, saving her from the blast's impact. Not given a chance to rest, Mizen immediately throws 2 explosion charms, but Melissa successfully blocks them with her magic sword. Mizen keeps throwing charms, and Melissa keeps trying to deflect all the attacks. Both Mizen and Melissa eventually start feeling exhausted. Frustrated with his unsuccessful attacks, Mizen gathers more energy to launch a bigger attack, making Melissa feel cornered as she has to face such immense energy. Melissa prepares to withstand the attack, and when Mizen unleashes his massive attack, everyone suddenly feels surprised and puzzled because nothing happens. It turns out that at that moment, Yona is activating a magic orb with divine blessing power, which can deactivate the charm powers of the werewolf tribe. Melissa can't believe Yona has such a special object. But when Yona mentions that the magic orb's power lasts just 10 minutes, Melissa wastes no time and starts quickly attacking Mizan with her magic sword. Unfortunately, Mizan manages to dodge by leaping high and successfully injures Melissa's arm with his sharp claws. Trying not to pay attention to her pain, Melissa relentlessly continues to attack Mizan, even though she knows their abilities are vastly different, and it's unlikely to win against Mizan. With his agility, Mizan manages to evade all the attacks until finally, with his sharp fangs, Mizan bites Melissa's neck. But even in a desperate situation, Melissa seizes the opportunity to stab Mizan in the abdomen. A lot of blood flows from the wound on Melissa's neck, and her vision starts to blur. Nine and Yona can be heard shouting her name, and then Melissa loses consciousness. Yona and Nine hold Melissa's body as her condition worsens. Although there's Yuri, a highly skilled sorcerer in healing, unfortunately, Yuri can't do anything while trapped inside that prison box. Hence, the only option is to defeat Mizan. For the first time, Nine displays a terrifying expression due to his extreme anger at seeing Melissa's condition. Seeing this, Mizan mocks Nine for being angry just because his human master is dying. Mizan also recalls the reason why Nine was expelled. It's because Nine once brought a human child into the werewolf territory, wanting to help that human child. Mizan laughs at Nine's foolish action in the past and feels that he should not have only cut Nine's tongue, but should have also ended the life of that human child. But suddenly, Mizan is shocked because an aura of energy emanates from Nine's body, indicating a werewolf in a state of awakening. Not believing it, Mizan immediately attacks Nine. However, with ease, Nine manages to withstand Mizan's claws and strikes Mizan's abdomen with a powerful blow, sending Mizan flying and crashing hard into the wall. Mizan continues to laugh at Nine, who now exhibits the demeanor of a fierce wolf, unlike young Nine, who always behaved weakly like a lamb, making Mizan ashamed to have such a twin brother. Nine retorts to Mizan, telling him to stop his nonsense because Nine knows that Mizan is already defeated and powerless. The power of the magic orb has ended, but Mizan doesn't unleash any charm powers and just keeps blabbering because he refuses to admit that he has lost to Nine in a physical showdown. It turns out that when pierced by Melissa's sword, the magic power of the sword disrupts the balance in Mizan's body, rendering him unable to use charm powers. Seeing Melissa in a helpless, bloodied state, Nine is determined to do anything to save the woman he deeply values. Nine chokes Mizan, who is now powerless. And for Melissa's sake, Nine is willing to cast aside his conscience by ending the life of his twin brother. In that tense situation, Melissa's scream is heard, asking Nine to stop his actions. Mizan mocks Melissa for her weakness in being unable to kill her enemy, but his laughter stops when he hears Melissa's next words. She doesn't need him dead, just beaten until he passes out. With one strong blow from Nine, Mizan loses consciousness. Then Nine immediately runs to Melissa, deeply worried, although Nine's condition is also very bad. Melissa is relieved to see Nine return to his original character, a gentle and caring Nine. Melissa doesn't really care about Mizan's safety, but what she's avoiding is Nine having to take his twin brother's life, fearing it would traumatize Nine for life. In her pain, Melissa takes her magic sword and approaches Yuri, still inside the charm-powered prison box. Yuri cries, seeing Melissa injured. Melissa assures her she can still hold on, then strikes the prison box with her magic sword. Mizan's weakened state allows Melissa's attack to destroy the prison box. After being freed, Yuri immediately checks Melissa's wounds. Initially, Melissa asks for Nine to be checked first, but both Nine and Yuri insist that Melissa be healed first. A few moments later, thanks to Yuri's healing skills, the wound on Melissa's neck is healed. Melissa encourages Nine, saying that despite their struggles, they have succeeded in capturing Mizan. Melissa also thanks Yuri for healing them. Not forgetting, Melissa also thanks Yona, but as usual, Yona's capitalist nature emerges, demanding compensation 4 times her monthly salary, plus additional fees for using the magic orb. Melissa is surprised by Yona's love for money, which always appears in every situation. But it seems Yona smiles because she is actually happy with Melissa's attention. As Team Melissa prepares to escape, suddenly someone breaks the wall. It's Jack, asking if Mizan is dead now. Hearing Jack's question, Melissa's mind immediately imagines Jack wanting Mizan dead so that he can become the main leader of the werewolf army. After that, Jack, obsessed with fighting, would order his entire army to attack the human race. Knowing they would be attacked, Ian, who would later become the king of the human race, would undoubtedly rally all his forces to arms. Thus, a war between humans and werewolves would ensue, resulting in the destruction of the world and the annihilation of both races. Swayed by her own imagination, Melissa becomes annoyed and stares at Jack cynically. However, Jack thinks Melissa is paying attention to him because she's worried and wants to take care of him. This makes Jack feel conceited, thinking Melissa is very attentive to him. But what happens next, Jack and Mizan are ordered to kneel and forced to attend an etiquette class led by Melissa. Melissa had it all figured out. She's navigating this crazy mix of book stuff and real life, planning to ace it despite the universe throwing curveballs her way. But she can't do it without the werewolves on board. She's worried about the mess that might follow if Mizan stays in charge. But Jack? The guy's a total goof, not chief material. So Melissa's taking it upon herself to show them some manners, being the nice person she is. Melissa starts with the basics, like how to say hi to someone. But teaching them without getting hands-on proves tough. Even though she's not totally happy with how it's going, she decides to give them a little encouragement. She draws a star on Mizan's fang, which totally blows everyone's mind with her slick move. Jack gets the same mark and is freaked out by it. But Melissa isn't done. She tells them she's actually cursed them. If they don't stick to her lessons or try to attack her again, one of their fangs is coming out. She also tells them to stay out of the forest unless she calls them, and if they dare to mess with Yuri or Nine, they're toast. Melissa is pretty stoked. They fell for it. She figures this will keep them on the down low for a bit. Meanwhile, she plans to stock up on some holy gear to ward off werewolf mojo and get serious about her sword skills. But she knows it's not all about laying down the law. She's planning to sneak them some tasty treats too. With that, Melissa and her crew head back home for real this time. Melissa's finally hitting pause. Chilling in her room, she's lying on her bed thinking about all the crazy stuff she's done lately. From outsmarting Ian at the night market, leveling up her magic game, keeping Jake in line, to going toe-to-toe with Mizan to protect Yuri and schooling Jack too. And remember how she was all set to stock up on holy artifacts and sharpen her sword skills once she got back? Yeah, she ditched all those plans. Now, after sending Yona and Nine off for a bit of enforced downtime, Melissa's trying to get some chill time herself. But then, there's this persistent knock on her door. She tries to ignore it, but it just won't quit. Annoyed, she finally opens the door, ready to give the maid who's bugging her a piece of her mind, saying she doesn't need anything. But then, the maid, all jittery, tells her Jake's asking for Monica's corpse to be returned to him. Looks like Melissa's break is going to have to wait. Before, Jake was begging Melissa to let him bury Monica at least. Melissa is pretty taken aback to see Jake looking way worse off than she thought. She's blown away that Jake, who's never cared about the targets he's taken down before, actually wants to bury his gun. Seeing how messed up Jake is, Melissa starts to feel for him. She says sorry and even offers to hook him up with a new gun, though she can't guarantee it'll be just like Monica. Jake doesn't say anything back, just starts crying. Giving it another shot, Melissa awkwardly suggests they go look for a stand-in gun until they can get a replacement for Monica. Jake finally agrees, and just like that, Melissa's chill time is officially over. So, Melissa and Jake are wandering through the city trying to track down a new gun for Jake. Turns out, it's not as straightforward as Melissa had hoped. She thinks if Yona were here, she'd definitely know where to go for guns. As they're figuring out their next move, Melissa suddenly sees Ian nearby. When they run into each other, Ian flashes Melissa a friendly smile and asks her what she's doing there. Melissa, slightly irked by his grin, shoots back with the same question. Ian, a bit on edge, says he's there to say sorry to the women he's invited over in the past, even though he knows it's probably way too late for apologies. Melissa's trying to figure out if the women Ian's talking about are the same ones he flirted with just to get under her skin before he met Yuri. You know, the ones he used to play up his role as the playboy prince. Ian's really hammering home that he's truly sorry now. He even mentions that because the king wasn't cool with him showing up in fancy clothes, he had to go under the radar with plain outfits and dyed hair. Ian awkwardly admits he's been thinking about making amends with Melissa too, since he knows he messed up with her big time. Honestly, Melissa can't figure out if Ian's being genuine or if he's just trying to get on her good side after she put him in his place last time. But hey, at least she's glad Ian won't be pulling any more stupid stunts. So, Melissa hits him with, "Alright, I'll be waiting for that sorry letter and you accepting we're done." For real? Ian's on board with that, but then gets nosy about where Melissa's off to. She tells him she's on the hunt for a new gun, mentioning it's for Jake. When Ian hears about Jake losing his beloved gun, he actually feels bad for the guy. So, he suggests they all head over to the royal palace. At the royal palace, Ian lets them know that the palace has a bunch of war loot lying around that nobody's using, including some guns. Since Jake's a top-notch sniper who rolls with the royal crew, Ian figures it wouldn't look too good on him, as the crown prince, to let such a sharpshooter go without a weapon. Melissa gives Jake the lowdown, basically telling him it's his chance to pick out whatever gun catches his eye. While Jake's on the hunt for his perfect gun, Ian tries to get cozy with Melissa, asking her if there's anything special she wants as a gift. Melissa cuts to the chase, saying a genuine sorry is all she's after. But Ian, looking all determined, insists he's going to win her over. Melissa, getting a tad irritated, doubles down on wanting their engagement called off and an apology. She thinks the idea of Ian falling for her now, after everything, is laughable, and she wants no part of him or the gossip that could follow. Melissa figures there's a catch to his generosity, questioning if he's hinting for her to speak well of him even after they split. She's not holding her breath for him to change, given the Ian she's gotten to know isn't exactly Prince Charming. Ian sounds bummed out, realizing his actions have made him look pretty bad in Melissa's eyes. Now, with a serious look on his face, Ian tells Melissa he's going to prove to her he's a changed man. Melissa's pretty shocked and can't find the words to respond. Ian keeps going, thanking Melissa and mentioning the tiara she gave him, saying he still looks after it and agrees with Melissa that it actually suits him pretty well. Melissa is downright stunned. But then, after a beat, they both end up laughing about it together. Out of nowhere, Jake aims a gun at Ian, announcing he's made his pick. Ian, a bit taken aback, checks if Jake's really settling on that gun. But then Jake throws them for a loop, saying he actually wants all the guns except that one. Melissa can't believe Jake's pulling a prank like this, but Jake swears he's dead serious, leading Melissa to grab him by the collar and give him a little shake, telling him to cut it out. Melissa also throws a thanks Ian's way, mentioning that with his help, Jake will be back in action and showing up for duty at the palace in no time. But then, Ian lets slip that Jake has never actually shown up for work like he's supposed to. He just rolls in whenever he feels like it and only picks the missions he likes. This news totally blindsides Melissa, and she quickly says she's sorry. Even though Ian brushes it off like it's no big deal, Melissa can't keep her cool anymore, especially since Jake doesn't seem the least bit sorry. So she ends up giving Jake a few well-deserved slaps. In the end, just before Jake and Ian's bromance went completely south, Melissa and Jake left the palace, with Jake carrying the most ordinary-looking gun they found. On their way home, Melissa spots some apples at a market stall they pass by. Out of the blue, Jake hands her this really appealing red apple. Melissa's first thought is that Jake might have swiped it, but Jake assures her he actually paid for it. Confused by this random act of kindness, Melissa wonders if Jake's got a craving for apples. But Jake says it's for her, even calling her big sister, which totally gives Melissa the chills. With a shy blush, Jake urges Melissa to just enjoy the apples since she couldn't stop checking them out. Annoyed that Melissa doubts him, Jake tosses the apple her way, prompting her to comment on his arrogance. Unexpectedly, Jake mumbles an apology, his bashfulness more unsettling to Melissa than charming. Feeling a bit guilty for wrecking his gun and failing to replace it as she intended, Melissa thinks maybe she'll indulge him this time as a way to make amends. Curious, Melissa asks Jake if there's anything else he's got a hankering for. So, she ends up buying him some other snack as they keep on their way home. Melissa finally crashes on her bed again. As she's lying there, she starts thinking about whether she's actually making a good impact, especially since Jake seems to be turning over a new leaf, even though she's just been doing her own thing. Then she begins to worry if messing with the story's flow might lead to some disaster. But in the end, Melissa decides she's not going to sweat it. She's made a promise to herself to live life on her own terms,